Chapter 61 The Maluo King knows Jack about Maluo skills. After tearing down 2 rooms, Duan Yun came out gasping for air. The sensation of Blade Storm was so exhilarating it felt like flying. If before he was using Jade Sword True Understanding and 12 layers of Spring Rain in their normal mode, then this round was like having unlimited ammo. The unlimited ammo was exhilarating, alright, but too much of it still made him a bit dizzy. But no matter, with continuous diligent practice, he'll stop feeling dizzy after a while. In the afternoon, Shining came back. One could say she returned loaded with spoils. She bagged 2 pheasants, 3 hares, and 3 fish. Seeing these, Duan Yun's eyes gleamed. It had been several days since he last ate meat. Yet, these days, his energy consumption was at his highest. Twice, he had looked at Little Gray as if he was seeing Donkey Burger. If it wasn't for Little Gray quickly sensing the danger and running away, he might have actually made his move. Actually, the Murong brothers have egged him on a few times, suggesting he should sell the donkey for wine. Compared to eating food and meat, the Murong brothers clearly preferred drinking. Today, Duan Yun's progress with the sword was not bad and he was in a good mood. He decided to celebrate with the meat, so he promptly went over to help. They didn't have a kitchen knife here, so Duan Yun handed his sword to Shining. Each of them armed with either a knife or a sword. It didn't take long to gut the pheasants, the hares, and the fish, cleaning them thoroughly. Everything was ready, with only the roasting left to be done. Yuzhu Villa's rickety gate lost another 2 panels, and quickly enough, smoke rose from the mountain villa situated below the graveyard. Watching the fish and meat sizzle over the flame, Duan Yun and Shun Ying glanced at each other. Despite previous arguments over dragging luggage foolishly and being smooth and unwrinkled, the two indeed felt a certain pleasant chemistry. Duan Yun didn't think he was under a curse, nor did he believe the other person was his sister. He was misled by the Murong brothers before. Thinking about it carefully, this was probably the first relatively normal beauty he had met in the martial world. He had encountered beauties before. The Red Building Women's Elder was young-looking with a voluptuous figure, the Murong sister was fair-skinned and beautiful, and the Goddess Catcher is a twin. But it was tough when one committed adultery and murder, another enjoyed sticking flowers into people, and the most normal Goddess Catcher was quite off-putting. So to personally unpack and find a currently well-behaved beauty, even if she was flat-chested, it was normal for Duan Yun to take a liking to her. Just like Xiang, she was a goddess made to stand out by other goddesses. Night fell quickly, and Yuzhu Villa rarely had a homey ambience. Previously, with 2 men, they didn't even light a lamp when drinking, and mostly ate takeout. In this gloomy villa, their spoken words sounded ghostly. Today, with fire and roasted meat, it must be said that Shining was very good at controlling the heat. As the fat on the meat sizzled, even the Murong brothers, who rarely ate anything, asked for a fish to eat. He lay there eating, wrapped in a straw mat, looking just like a beggar. Seeing this, Shining couldn't help but ask Duan Yun, "How long has he been like this?" Duan Yun said with a smile, "This is already an improvement. When I first came here, I thought there was nobody in this haunted place." He blended in with the straw mat and suddenly spoke up. "I really thought I had encountered a ghost." Shining nodded and whispered, "It seems that incident had a big impact on him. Everyone outside says that he is the most handsome man in the Murong family for 8 generations. I really can't see it." Duan Yun also whispered, "Really? I didn't see that at all." Shun Ying earnestly said, "It's true. In terms of looks, he's nowhere near as good as you." At this point, Murong couldn't help but curse. "You two being all lovey-dovey is fine, but why insult me? How am I worse than him?" Duan Yun laughed and said, "We just want to encourage you to get back on your feet. That's all." Shining nodded and added, "Some people could tidy themselves up and not have to look like a beggar." "That's right. I seriously suspect his sisters want to kill him because he turned ugly. I hope you two really are siblings." Murong continued cursing. "We can still be seen as siblings. I think at least Shining won't chop me up," Duan Yun said. Shining immediately chimed in, "I promise I won't chop you up. Murong brothers, IF asterisk 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 G. The barbecue was quite enjoyable, but the weather turned sour, and it started raining halfway through the outdoor feast. Damn this ghostly weather. It's autumn and still, thunderstorms are frequent. So they had no choice but to shift locations, moving to the Morong brothers' room to continue eating. The only rooms that could shelter them from the rain were two, and the Morong brothers' room was the largest. Plus he didn't mind a little mess of chicken bones and fish bones lying around. He could still sleep soundly amidst it. Duan-Yun once witnessed a rat scampering over him, a spider crawling into one ear and out the other without eliciting a single twitch from him. As they were eating, suddenly a gust of wind blew and opened the old window with a whoosh. Just as Duan-Yun was about to get up and close the window, he heard a voice. "Big brother, you said the cards on the gambling table ran off by themselves. Can this round of betting still have an outcome?" This round of betting obviously can't count, but such disobedient cards should be torn up and burnt, lest they affect people's gambling. These two voices were quite eerie, as if they were coming from two ducks whose throats were being squeezed while being forcibly quacked out. Duan-Yun looked outside, but saw no one. Yet the voices were clearly nearby. On this stormy night, these two voices seemed especially terrifying. At this time, Shening, looking a bit pale, reminded, "They're here." Duan-Yun asked in confusion, "Those eunuchs? How dare you? How dare you directly call us mere eunuchs?" Just then, an extra person appeared at the unlatched window. A very small person, wearing a silver mask that only covered the upper part of the forehead, with two long metallic spikes protruding from either side of it. If the people from the Thunder God and Mother sect were to have two iron flutes inserted into their heads, making them look like oxen, then this person resembled a bee. The bee was small, he too was small, barely 3 feet tall, no different from a young child. Bees have a bit of cuteness, but the person in front of them was nothing close to cute. Amidst the thunderstorm, the silver mask that seemed embedded in flesh reflected the light, making the person look like a demon crawling out from the mountain. Duan-Yun thought to himself, "No wonder I couldn't see this person earlier. Turned out it's because he is too short." Almost at the same time, another eunuch of similar size appeared at the door, but on his face there was a gold mask. Duan-Yun couldn't help but ask wonderingly, "You're so short, you can still be eunuchs?" At this moment, the Morong brothers spoke up. That's because they practiced an incomplete Maluo skills, they did it wrong. The Maluo king grew taller and bigger with practice. By the time of his death, he was over 10 feet tall, yet they've become even smaller than dwarfs. Bullshit. We're exquisitely dainty. Condensation is the essence. It's impossible that we practiced incorrectly. The dead Maluo king doesn't know jack about the Maluo skills. The silver mask eunuch rebuked. Why waste words with them? Just tear up these little shrimps. At this point, two more similarly dwarf-sized people appeared at the small window. For dwarfs wearing metallic masks stood there like 4 sinister demons, appearing very terrifying in the night. Suddenly, the silver-masked dwarf said, "Big brother, let's make a bet. When you call stop, we'll see if the number of pieces they are torn into by us is odd or even." "I bet on odd." "Odd." "I bet on even." "I also bet even." While they were placing bets there, Duan-Yun also spiritedly said, 3 against 4, I choose 2, you others pick first. Chapter 62-8 Extremes Break. These 4 dwarfish eunuchs, monstrous in appearance, suddenly spoke with a tone more commanding than the emperor himself. Hearing that Duan-Yun had also been chosen, the silver-faced dwarf couldn't help but screech in his hoarse voice, "This guy got picked too. You pick first." Duan-Yun and Shan-Ing tacitly let the Morong brothers choose first, causing all 4 of the monster-like eunuchs to turn their attention to the Morong siblings. Under great pressure, the Morong siblings felt they were in a difficult position and asked, "Can't we just not choose?"
No. No.
Before Duan-Yun and Shan-Ing could speak, the 4 dwarfish eunuchs unanimously declared. The Morong siblings were compelled to make a choice. They felt mentally exhausted and after looking around, pointed to the one by the farthest right window and said, "You." This eunuch, donning an iron mask, was the shortest among the 4 dwarfs, presumably also the weakest. He was a lazy person. If he had to choose, he would choose the weakest opponent. "You're choosing me, lad?" The iron-masked eunuch suddenly leapt down, and with a small hand, he tore a green brick straight out of the wall. Almost without any delay, the brick whistled through the air towards the Murong siblings, like a cannonball, accompanied by a fierce, whizzing sound. The Murong siblings were startled and promptly lay flat on the ground just as they stood up. With a bang, the green brick smashed through the wall behind them and flew out into the curtain of rain. "What incredible strength!" exclaimed the Murong siblings in surprise. Shun Ing explained, "The Maluo divine skill they cultivated is incomplete, and the abilities they've comprehended vary entirely. Some are as light as the wind, while others possess immense strength, like this one who clearly has great power." The Murong siblings complained with a face full of gloom. "Why didn't you say so earlier? I thought you knew it all." Shining shrugged and said, "In fact, just a moment ago, the Murong siblings were indeed acting like an encyclopedia, as if they knew everything." "Too bad." "Done chatting?" asked the iron-masked eunuch, staring intently at the Murong siblings. The Murong siblings replied, "Not yet. Then chat after you're dead," he declared. With that, the iron-masked eunuch grabbed 2 green bricks from the wall and charged towards the Murong siblings. The Murong siblings shouted, "Can't we talk this over?" and turned to run outside. The iron-masked eunuch, holding the bricks, pursued them. In the dark of night, a young child wielding 2 bricks menacingly chased a big man, creating a scene that was both terrifying and comical. At almost the same time, the remaining 3 eunuchs had started moving and approached. Shining said, "I choose the one in gold." "All right." Duan Yun then turned to look at the remaining 2 silver-faced eunuchs and the copper-faced eunuch. "Taking on 2 at once, you're bold, kid." As he spoke, the most talkative silver-faced eunuch hurriedly closed in with short strides. Duan Yun didn't dare to neglect, clenched his hand into a sword finger, and released a jade sword finger. The silvery white sword chi shot out rapidly, and the silver-faced eunuch laughed as he charged forward. But the moment his clothes were ripped apart by the blast, his body suddenly stalled, and he plopped down onto the ground. Both Duan Yun and the silver-faced eunuch were startled by the sight. This was the first time Duan Yun encountered someone whose body wasn't pierced through by the jade sword finger, while the silver-faced eunuch, with his solid Vajra body invulnerable to both blade and sword chi. Never before had he experienced the sword chi of the sword finger perforating and drawing blood from his flesh. Both parties were stunned for a moment. Then nearly simultaneously, they both started to channel their true chi. Embrace Sparrow Tail. Vajra Body. The sword immortal dharma of the white silk jade sword immortal materialized. Dozens of jade arms opened like a peacock's tail, accompanied by a series of dense sword chi blasts. The skin on the silver-faced eunuch developed a metallic sheen as it collided with the jade sword finger sword energy. Bang! 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 Sword chi struck him, sparkling with sparks. His defenses were strong, but the penetrating power of the jade sword true chi was also robust. Thus, the silver-faced eunuch was instantly bombarded onto the ground, rolling around chaotically like fireworks set off at New Year's. Duan Yun kept up his fire, and the silver-faced eunuch, pained and bleeding, cried out in alarm, "Third brother, help me, this is tricky." The bronze-faced eunuch leaped into the air, his cloak suddenly unfurling behind him. Though his stature was small, he was still a person. But at this moment he was light as a feather, circling in the air like a bat. During his circling, he opened his mouth and, with a whoosh, spat out a series of iron bead hidden weapons. Duan Yun hurriedly dodged, annoyed in his heart. It was one thing for this scoundrel to spit out hidden weapons, but damn it, he was even spitting saliva. Fourfold spring rain rotate. Duan Yun didn't say another word and swept out with his blade. The rotating blade chi roared past, and the bronze-faced eunuch quickly swiveled his body to evade. With a bang, the rooftop was shattered by the rotating blade chi. The bronze-faced eunuch's movements were ghostly fast, and he could even rise with the blade wind, But unfortunately, he was caught off guard by the hidden forces of the fourfold spring rain and suffered a cut to his thigh, letting out a muffled groan. Elsewhere, Shining and the golden-faced eunuch were also engaged in combat. The golden-faced dwarf's moves were swift and fierce, and due to his short stature, they were all directed below the knees. Shining, with her height and long legs, had to stoop to confront him, feeling somewhat at a disadvantage. At that moment, she suddenly retreated. It was because she saw the dwarf's whole body muscles transform in that instant. The entire arm that delivered the punch turned a bluish-green from shoulder to tip. Shun Ying's figure flashed, and that arm pierced straight through the wall behind her. Though the wall was old, its blue bricks were solid. Yet, in the hands of this eunuch, they were like tofu. The critical point was that the wall's edges, struck by the fist, turned a dark greenish-black. This punch was clearly laced with poison. Shining did not hesitate and leaped out the window. In the next instant, she shifted backward. With a bang, a fist burst through the wall she had been standing on, striking the spot where she had just been. After punching through the wall, the fist tore upwards like ripping paper, carrying an aura of dark greenish-black poison, aiming straight for Shin Ying's face. No one wanted to face such a fist because even if one's arm was not smashed like the wall, the foul poison was likely to contaminate. But this time, Shining did not dodge. Instead, she raised her hand to meet it. A gentle force, like water, entwined and covered her arm. With a thud and a tremble in the bones, the golden-faced eunuch's punch was ferocious, but at this moment, it was solidly blocked by Shining. Just as the malicious energy was about to penetrate her skin, Shun Ying's shoulder shook sharply, and she suddenly used a mountain cling move. Dressed in a lotus Taoist robe and tall in stature, with a refined and elegant demeanor, she seemed like she should excel in the use of Taoist swords. But at this moment, her shoulder thrust was like a thunderbolt. With a bang, the wall was crushed like paper, and on the other side of the wall, the golden-faced eunuch, in the midst of a leap to strike, faced the shoulder thrust and found it difficult to maneuver. With a booming explosion, the golden-faced eunuch's body was suddenly hit hard and heavily smashed into the ground, creating a deep pit, dust billowing. Just as he tried to struggle up with his short arms and legs, Shun Ying's figure had already suddenly appeared in front of his head. Shun Ying's figure sank, and her fists smashed down swiftly. Bang! 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 For a moment, her fists pummeled like a fast and furious storm, and although the golden-faced eunuch's reaction was quick, hurriedly raising his arms to protect his head, he was still struck by the violent fists 7 or 8 times, even deforming the golden mask. In a few breaths, Shining had thrown dozens of punches and also delivered a couple of flying kicks. Midway through, the golden-faced eunuch tried to counterattack, but lying on the ground, his short limbs put him at a disadvantage, unable to make contact. The ferocity of Shin Ying's punches meant he could only hug his head to protect his vitals. But at that moment, Shining gripped his chin and the top of his head with both hands and lifted. The golden-faced eunuch's body was lifted from the ground and then fiercely slammed down. Slam it again. Pummel violently. 8 extremes break. Chapter 63. So you're also a skin enthusiast. One after another explosion crater appeared on the ground, with rocks flying and a brutally smashing sound that was chilling to the bone with the noise of flesh and bones being shattered. The eunuch with the golden mask was smashed until he saw stars and bled from all 7 orifices, wanting to fight back with his fists, but he was already weak and powerless. Who would have thought that Shining, a beautiful girl wearing a lotus Taoist robe, was so proficient in the 8 extremes fist? Things looked great on this side, but Murong's situation was dire. Facing the pursuit of the iron-faced eunuch wielding a plank, he usually didn't even bother to move, slow as a tortoise, but now he ran faster than a rabbit. Duan Yun, pressing down 2 eunuchs with a sword and saber, couldn't help but complain, "Why do you only know how to run?" Logically, being on the same level, Murong, who mastered the 12 layers of spring rain, should have had more than enough ability to handle 1 eunuch. Murong's face showed extreme discomfort. He yelled out, "Damn it! I don't have a sword! I don't have a sword!" Then pull him over here. I'll take care of him with the group, Duan Yun said, lifting his saber up. Almost at the same time, the appearance of white silk jade sword immortal behind him changed into that of black silk jade sword immortal. Damn it! Damn it! Hearing this familiar voice, Murong knew that something big was about to happen. Seeing the eunuch with the plank catching up, he slid directly, sticking to the large hole just created by Shining, and crawled into it. The iron-faced eunuch followed closely, and almost at the same time, the air around suddenly stilled, like the oppressive moment before a storm. Seeing Shining still boxing, Murong couldn't help but say, "Get out of there fast!" 6 layers of spring rain. Embrace sparrow tail. Almost simultaneously, a violent whirlwind of saber energy and sword shadows spun up, like a sudden hurricane. As the iron-faced eunuch just followed into the hole, he was full of anger with nowhere to vent. Then he was met with 3 rotating streams of sword chi. Instinctively, he raised the brick to block, but sadly, the sharp spring rain sword chi, like shaving mud, chopped the brick in half and slashed into him. His originally dwarf-like body was flung out and crashed into the wall. He hadn't even had the chance to scream when an even more terrifying scene occurred. The rotating sword light and saber energy swept in like a hurricane. Before the sword and saber storm even reached, the nearby walls already crumbled as if they were rotten wood, and the overflowing force painfully sliced his body. What kind of magic is this? Escape. That was the only thought the iron-faced eunuch had. So he frantically dug at the walls with his blood-stained hands, trying to flee like a gecko climbing a wall. But it was too late. The storm of blades came too fast and furious. In an instant, he was engulfed in it. A large section of the wall along with the roof was sliced open by the sword and saber energy. The iron-faced eunuch spun and was flung into the air, in that tearing sword wind. He even saw his second and third brothers along with the indifferent expression of Jade Sword Immortal Dharma amidst this fierce storm. Immortal monster? He only felt immense pain in his body. Even though he used all his true chi to resist, his whole body felt fragmented. With a loud crash, the walls along with the roof completely shattered and collapsed, while outdoors, the rainwater was whipped up in the air by the 6 layers of spring rain, and the ground was riddled with holes from the sword and saber energy. When the storm of blades stopped, besides the golden-faced eunuch who was beaten until unrecognizable by Shining, the other 3 eunuchs all fell to the ground like broken sacks. They were already a bloody mess, with no good flesh left on their bodies, hardly resembling human forms anymore. Duan Yun stood there holding his sword and saber, panting heavily. These guys were formidable, especially the silver-faced eunuch, whose body was exceptionally tough, making him pant heavily before he managed to finish them off. The iron sword that had been with him since his first escape also could not withstand the intensity of the sword energy just now and was destroyed. Suddenly it became very quiet around. Even though Murong had seen Duan Yun demolish houses before, seeing these men minced like this still felt terrifying. This was not the previously used 12 layers of spring rain but rather 6 layers of spring rain plus his crescent-like sword chi, each wave higher than the last. Nobody would want to be an opponent to someone like this. Even him who mastered the demon blade. Sigh, just some wasted houses. Thus, the battleground quickly moved from Murong's room to where Duan Yun was. No way, Murong's room was just demolished. There's completely no way to shelter from the rain. Tonight, what surprised Murong wasn't just Duan Yun, but also Shining. If Duan Yun's performance was something he was somewhat prepared for, then the fist technique of this woman was truly terrifying. That gold-faced eunuch was beaten by her to the point of no longer looking human. He really couldn't tell that this delicately beautiful woman could punch so fiercely. Judging from tonight's performance, he was the weakest. But Murong had his reasons too. After all, he had no sword in his hands. He had given his gentleness to Duan Yun. That gold-faced eunuch was not dead yet. But after Shining knocked on his forehead a few times, he died from anger, died with his eyes wide open. Because he was full of killing power, besides the initial couple of exchanges with Shining, he had been getting beaten up all along. Usually, it was him who easily killed people, turning them into a mess. But today he was the one constantly getting beaten up, short-handed and unable to reach anything, instead being turned into a mess by others. That's really bullying the dwarf. So, he died, together with 3 brothers who had experienced the sword blade storm baptism. Outside, the rain was still falling, just lightened up a lot, just like spring rain. When Murong practiced with his sword, he always felt like it was spring rain all the time, as if it were always spring. Duan Yun also had a similar feeling, but because he was too engrossed in chopping people up. It was his first time trying out area attack to kill enemies, and the effect was good. Afterward, Duan Yun started to loot the corpses. Tonight, the only 2 inhabitable rooms in the mountain villa were demolished. He needed to find some good stuff to compensate for the loss. The 3 eunuchs were chopped too thoroughly by him. When he went to loot the bodies, he even felt scared. That dead state was terrifying enough to scare a person to death. But for the sake of silver, Duan Yun gritted his teeth and looted for a while, eventually finding some fragmented silver. The silver was really fragmented. Originally it should have been intact silver ingots, but they were turned into fine pieces by his sword chi. After a long time, Duan Yun only found these. Shining, on the other hand, did not loot much but gained more. Because the gold mask on that gold-faced eunuch's face, although distorted from her punches, was still made of gold. Although very thin, it was still gold. Originally with no money, only able to hunt for meat. Suddenly someone brought a gold mask, truly a feeling of a bountiful harvest. The bodies were temporarily thrown in the backyard. Afterward, the 3 of them were a bit hungry. So the barbecue that wasn't finished earlier was fired up to continue. At this time, Duan Yun and Shining started praising each other. Shining, that fist technique of yours just now was really fierce, Duan Yun asked. 8 extremes break, combined with 9 death silkworm technique, but still not as fierce as you. Your sword and saber energy are terrifying, very rare. Shining looked at Duan Yun and praised. Duan Yun's mind stirred and said, how about you teach me your fist technique, and I teach you my swordsmanship? My swordsmanship is nourishing yin and strengthening yang. Not the same as 12 layers of spring rain. Duan Yun knew that the other party was biased against 12 layers of spring rain, so he tried to exchange martial arts with the very orthodox jade sword true understanding. Shining directly refused. I won't learn. I haven't even fully learned my own martial arts. But you have to answer one most important question for me. At this time, Shen Ying's expression suddenly turned serious, looking at Duan Yun and said, what question? Duan Yun's expression also turned serious, thinking it must be some profound martial arts exchange. Where can I buy that sword Immortal Dharma's socks you just showed? They're very unique. Both white and black look very beautiful. Hearing this important question, the lying Murong was choked to the point that he was spraying water from his nostrils. This question of yours is indeed very important. Duan Yun suddenly regarded Shining with even more respect. Turns out she's also an aesthetics aficionado. Chapter 64. What isn't reciprocated is often the most expensive. After discovering Shen Ying's interest in the skin he had added to the Jade Sword Immortal, Duan Yun thought he'd found a kindred spirit and figured he could still have a shot at obtaining the other's cultivation technique. He said, those are called white silk and black silk. With my limited knowledge, I believe only divine silkworm silk can achieve such an effect. I'll make a couple of pairs for you when I'm free. Really? Shen Ying said with a surprised face. Duan Yun said, the 9 death silkworm technique you practice, does it produce silk like a silkworm when it's fully cultivated? How about you spit out some silk and I'll make you 2 pairs on the spot? Shen Ying shook her head and said, the 9 death silkworm technique only produces divine silkworm armor. When reaching the stage of divine silkworm's 7 transformations, and I'm not there yet. Duan Yun said, then just pass it on to me. I'm a once-in-a-million cultivation genius. Surely I can reach the 7 transformations quickly. Shining suddenly looked wary and said, you're just trying to coax my technique out of me, aren't you? Why not be direct? Why beat around the bush? Duan Yun seriously said, would you teach me if I didn't beat around the bush? I wouldn't. This is a family martial art not to be casually taught to outsiders. It contains many risks. If my father knew I was indiscriminately passing it to someone else, he would break my legs. At this point, Murong chimed in teasingly, "He's your brother. What outsiders?" Duan Yun quickly added, "Right? I am your long-lost brother. There's absolutely no problem teaching me." To learn a technique, having an extra sister was no big deal. Whether bonded by blood or not, it didn't matter. Shuning said with a pained expression, "Get lost. Wanting to learn my 9-death silkworm and also to be my brother, you're taking too much advantage." "How can learning Kung Fu be considered taking advantage?" Duan Yun said. But Duan Yun's attempt to learn 9-death silkworm technique was unsuccessful, though he wasn't too disappointed, knowing that not everyone shared his ambition to impart martial arts. So, he generously said, "I won't learn your family's secret techniques. Then how about I teach you swordsmanship?" Since arriving in Wangchun City, he hadn't taught any martial arts and was itching to do so. He had previously thought of giving Peach Blossom swordsmanship in exchange for martial arts from the Murong brothers, who flatly declined. The reason was simple. They were lazy and passionate about sabers, and they would never cheat on their love. Unless it was a technique from old Demon Duan that could transform him into a woman, he wouldn't learn anything else in this lifetime. Shening, before him, appeared to be a new candidate for old Demon Duan to pass on his techniques. Shening rejected again, saying, "I won't learn it." "Why not? My swordsmanship is so good, and I'm not asking for anything in return," Duan Yun said, feeling gloomy. He had already displayed his strength, and there was no reason for his jade sword true understanding to be despised. "My mother taught me that the most expensive things are usually those that don't ask for repayment. It might end up costing a person everything. Besides, I don't like practicing sword. I like boxing," she said. Saying this, Shun Ying looked at Duan Yun with a doubtful gaze. "I've realized you're not only trying to worm out my martial arts and be my brother, but you also want the status of an elder, to be my master." At this point, Murong suddenly got excited, saying, "Master and disciple? You guys are this twisted. Shut up. Shut up." Duan Yun and Shin Ying shouted in unison once more. Then Shin Ying said, "You, a big man, can't go back on your word about sending me 2 pairs of socks." "Sure, once I get the silk, I'll make you 2 pairs, Duan Yun said grandly. 2 pairs of silk stockings, he should be able to manage that. But at the same time, he felt a bit guilty, as the craftsmanship in this world to get the texture of those stockings right might not be easy. Shuning then stoked the fire more, bringing the splendid chicken they hadn't had time to roast earlier and began grilling it. Thinking about the 4 neat corpses in the backyard, all 3 of them felt a strange sense of relaxation and comfort. "I say, today we've helped Ying solve a problem, and Yuju Villa has averted another crisis. We should celebrate," Murong said, watching the greasy wild chicken. "It's the middle of the night and raining. How can we celebrate? Go make a few graves for those eunuchs and dance in front of their graves." Duan Yun wondered. "Drink wine. Of course, drink wine. You and Shining are no fun, eating meat without drinking wine, celebrating without drinking. What's the point?" Murong retorted. Shining raised an eyebrow and said, "It's the middle of the night. All the taverns in town are closed. Where can we buy any wine?" Murong responded, "I previously buried a few jars of peach blossom brew in the yard. Vaguely remember it's in the southeast corner, but I can't remember the exact spot. However, I'm certain it's there. Why don't one of you dig them up? Then we'd have wine to drink." At this point, Duan Yun and Shining both looked at Murong. Murong, shivering, said, "Why are you 2 siblings staring at me?" "Of course you're the one to dig," Duan Yun said. "Why me?" "Because you're the weakest tonight," Duan Yun said earnestly. Shun Ying agreed. "I think Mr. Duan is right." Murong, "Aye." In the dead of night, the drizzle was soft. Murong, holding the long-absent gentleness, dug in the yard. He now wished he could dig a hole and bury himself in it. This was truly a hole he had dug for himself. Under the broken eaves, Duan Yun and Shun Ying sat there, each holding a roast chicken leg, enjoying themselves while watching Morong dig. Do you think he can dig them out? Shining asked, puzzled. If he doesn't find it, just keep digging until he does. You're ruthless. The two chatted and laughed while Morong was panting heavily. He'd moved more tonight than he had in the whole past year. At that moment, Morong suddenly saw a glint of porcelain, hurriedly dug it up, and cried out with joy, "Found it!" Having the wine made the meat even tastier. I must say, this plum blossom brew, buried for several years, was truly refreshing and carried the fragrance of plum blossoms. But this brew was somewhat heady. Shining watched Morong lying down drinking like a dragon sipping water, clicking her tongue in wonder. I thought being able to drink while standing on my head was a skill, but you've outdone me, Morong hurriedly said. I used to think this skill of lying down and drinking was great, but I felt inferior after meeting him. Shining turned to Duan Yun and asked, how else can you drink? He drinks normally, but he can shoot the wine. Shoot the wine? How so? Duan Yun extended his finger, and the wine shot out, nearly hitting Shun Ying's face if she hadn't reacted quickly. In the next moment, Shun Ying kept dodging as Duan Yun could shoot wine even from his elbow. In fact, now his toes could shoot too. Being shot at by Duan Yun, Shun Ying couldn't help but say, "Ah, stop it, you're so weird." Without another word, Duan Yun flicked his finger and shot a stream of wine right into Morong's face as he lay there drinking. Morong, After having their fill of wine and meat, the three of them began to contemplate their safety and discussed a very important matter. The eunuch is dead. Ying's trouble is resolved. Now it's your turn, Duan Yun said. At this, Duan Yun and Shun Ying both looked at Morong. Duan Yun pondered, if your sisters come, what will you do? Should I fix up the cellar a bit, so we have a place to detain them after overpowering them, to help them recover faster? Morong, shocked, said, what? Detain? Chapter 65. Wisdom Sparkles. Breaking Body Sword Chi. Unexpected Upgrade. Imprisonment. After hearing Duan Yun's words, Morong brothers were shocked. He had been pursued by his former lovers, now his sisters, for many years and had never considered such a thing. Can a sister be imprisoned? Duan Yun said confidently, they'll go mad, daring to chop you. It's because they haven't been thrashed enough. If they are locked in the basement, hands and feet tied up, a beating might do the job. They might stop being crazy. Morong brothers shook their head. No, I can't bring myself to do it. Duan Yun said, if you can't, I can do it for you, guaranteeing they won't trouble you again. By now he understood treating people with care was a slow healing process, but for those who easily go mad, beating them was the most effective method. If not, then just increase the intensity. Then he would just need to hit harder. Of course, if he hit too hard, Morong brothers, this devoted follower, would definitely not stand at first. After all, one should take initiative, tie up all those flower fanatics and the white-haired witch sisters, educate them well, then release them. Unfortunately, he didn't have the money to buy such information, and didn't know where those sisters were, only waiting for them to come to him. If it was before tonight, Shun Ying would definitely think Duan Yun was bluffing. Because Morong brothers' sisters are quite famous women in the martial world, precisely the kind one should not provoke. But tonight's outcome made her feel he might actually be able to capture them. Thinking of these things distressed and entangled Morong brothers deeply, he said, stop talking about me. Don't you have enemies? Duan Yun seriously said, as I've said before, I've recently entered the martial world, behaved well towards others. Naturally, I don't have many enemies. Morong brothers said, not many means there are some. Duan Yun replied, in the martial world, no matter how well you treat others, there are still some mad people that just bite others. That's true, just like me, encountering those eunuchs for no reason, Shun Ying profoundly said. Looking into Duan Yun's clear eyes, Morong brothers and Shun Ying almost believed his words. Duan Yun, being new to the martial world, even if he had enemies, there were probably just a few. Actually, Duan Yun already had a plan. This time, the dual masters of sword and saber made a good debut with satisfying effects. He must find a free time to kill off all those looking for him. As long as he kills his enemies beforehand, then he'd have fewer enemies. The next day, Duan Yun was about to go out with a saber to kill, but Xining stopped him. The house was destroyed last night. I have nowhere to stay. Shouldn't we fix a couple more rooms? Duan Yun thought about it. That indeed made sense. These past few nights they hardly slept, so it wasn't a concern, but since Xining agreed to stay and help, at least he should arrange a room for her. Surely she couldn't just stay in the same room as him? At this moment, Murong brothers also looked at him and said, "Save the lazy man. I was digging half of the night yesterday. Back sore and legs hurt. Wanted to sleep in this morning, but the roof and walls are gone." Originally, Murong brothers' room was the largest and most luxurious here, but now it is the most broken and run down. It's unsalvageable, the type that no one wants to save. So they had to select two slightly better rooms to repair. Initially, when Duan Yun first arrived, he barely chose those two rooms from a bunch of dilapidated houses. Now to reselect, it was truly like picking a beauty from the dung, adding difficulties to difficulties. However, they still chose two rooms that were not particularly broken. Just that the walls had 13 holes, several parts of the roof were missing, and only half of the window was left. In short, not particularly broken. Because the more broken ones you see, the more refined these two seem. These two tile-roofed houses were not easy to retile as the wooden frame structure for tiling was completely damaged. Thinking of the bamboo in the graveyard behind, the three people agreed to make a bamboo house on this broken foundation. The always-lying Murong brothers also had to be forced to work as this time he was the least capable, and the least capable had no rights. Otherwise, he could only sleep in that old house missing half a wall. Murong and his brothers started to repair the walls of the new house. Xining was fixing the windows, while Duan Yun took Wenro to the graveyard to cut bamboo, casually dumping the bodies of several eunuchs there. Thus, Duan Yun, carrying a stack of corpses, went to the graveyard, appearing like a messenger from the netherworld. During the day, as one entered into the vast graveyard, a bone-chilling cold could be felt instantly. Grave mounds were crowded together, exuding a strong smell of earth due to the recent rainfall. Prepared red candle wax and burnt paper money on the ground had already mingled with the mud. Pitch-black bamboo grew wildly in this part of the graveyard, blocking the sky. The most terrifying were the scarecrows made by someone unknown. In this dim bamboo mountain, they sometimes abruptly entered your line of sight through the gaps in the bamboo, as if ill-intentioned people were spying on you. Damn it! This scarecrow looks just like a defeated bride. Duan Yun looked at a scarecrow standing there, wearing rotting red clothes like a bride on her wedding day, and couldn't help but comment. He didn't know if it was a local custom or what, but there were quite a few scarecrows in this area, creating an ominous feeling. Duan Yun selected several large black bamboos and began cutting them down. As Wenro was unsheathed, a single sweep, though not utilizing sword chi, was still extremely sharp. The black bamboos, as thick as bowl mouths, were easily chopped down, and Duan Yun carried them back. After one trip, finding it too troublesome, he then told Xining that next time he would simply throw them down from the mountain for her to catch. Xining nodded and said, "These bamboos are not small, another 30 or so should be enough." Thus, Duan Yun climbed the mountain again, this time reaching a higher place. The blade swept again, and the black bamboos fell at the sound. Duan Yun, holding a bundle of cut bamboo, stood in front of a mud slope, where the outline of Yuzhu Villa was barely visible. Then he shouted loudly, "The bamboos are coming!" His voice carried far. Very soon, Shen Ying's voice came back, "Send them over." Duan Yun sank his horse stance, adopted the jade sword stance, and channeled the jade sword true chi into his arms. In the next moment, he pushed forcefully, sending the bundle of bamboo flying down the mountain. The flying bamboo, wrapped in true chi, flew like a celestial being towards the courtyard of Yuzhu Villa, shattering any bamboo in its path. Xining stood in the courtyard, watching the bundle of bamboos whizzing towards her. With a sweep of her right hand and leveraging her movement, the once unstoppable bamboo was easily caught in her hand. After 5 deliveries, Shining couldn't help but shout, "Enough bamboo!" Afterward, no more bamboo was sent, but nearly half an hour had passed and Duan Yun had not returned. Murong, who was weary from working and wanted to lie down, couldn't help but wonder, "It's been so long. Isn't this guy slacking off?" On the graveyard hill, Duan Yun stood in front of the 4 eunuchs' corpses, closing his eyes and maintaining the jade sword stance. A barely perceptible aura swirled around him. While performing jade sword stance to throw the bamboo, he had sensed this aura. This was an aura different from moonlight and nature's spiritual energy, evoking feelings of darkness and corrosion. In this graveyard, this aura was everywhere, but it became more pronounced in front of these 4 newly deceased eunuchs. Corpse chi? Death energy? Duan Yun wondered. Duan Yun tried to absorb a bit of death energy into his body, then quickly stopped. Because he felt death and darkness, he knew absorbing this aura was like taking poison. He had also tried to absorb sunlight after successfully absorbing moonlight, but quickly gave up. Because the sunlight was too intense and potent, it felt like it would ignite him. Yet, this death energy was no less intense than sunlight, appearing more lethal and cold, but more importantly, it was more tangible than sunlight and moonlight. Absorbing moonlight, Duan Yun was already well practiced, but each time he needed to maintain the stance and enter a state of emptiness. However, this death energy in his perception was like some kind of strange fragrance that could be noticed without emptying his mind. At that moment, a flash of extraordinary wisdom crossed Duan Yun's mind. Extending a finger, the breaking body sword energy transformed into threads and burst forth. In the next moment, breaking body sword energy and death energy merged together. Damn, could this really work? Chapter 66. The Intensity of a Genius. After chopping bamboo, Duan Yun did not return home, not because he was slacking off, but because he sensed the presence of death energy. That is, the energy of the deceased. This death energy, unlike the moonlight and nature's spiritual energy absorbed by Jade Sword Stance previously, possesses a completely different aura and is more tangible. Duan Yun tried to send out an extremely thin breaking body sword energy. The sword energy, like a drizzle, quickly merged with the death energy. Immediately after, the breaking body sword energy underwent a fascinating transformation. Originally silver-white like drizzle, it now turned jet black like ink. Duan Yun urged the sword energy, thrusting it forward. The black sword energy, like drizzle, shot towards the nearby black bamboo. The next moment, the black bamboo emitted a piercingly loud bursting noise, shattering and breaking in half. Holy shit, it's so powerful? Duan Yun was startled by himself. All along, while breaking body sword energy was good for killing mosquitoes, its power was ultimately too weak. Even with Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom and supreme talent, it was difficult to resolve this issue for a while. Unexpectedly, today's toss of the corpse and chopping of bamboo allowed him to discover the existence of death energy. And after fusing the tiny breaking body sword energy with the black death energy, it became extremely aggressive. Duan Yun tried to combine the sword chi of Water Moonslash and Jade Swordfinger with death energy and found it difficult, because the sword chi of Water Moonslash and Jade Swordfinger already took shape upon leaving the body, making it extremely difficult to alter. Only this breaking body sword energy, as thin as threads, was highly malleable, merging easily with death energy. Breaking body sword energy, release. In the next instant, Duan Yun's body was instantly surrounded by a drizzle-like sword energy. This sword energy, upon encountering death energy, quickly turned black and strengthened. Duan Yun flicked his finger, and the black sword energy rushed out like a swarm of bees, buzzing loudly as it moved. Wherever the black sword energy passed, the black bamboo exploded, tombstones were pockmarked, and dust flew around. Walking among them, Duan Yun was like an unstoppable cutting machine. As the buzzing continued, he could shatter anything with his sword energy. Duan Yun, standing in the graveyard, momentarily felt invincible. But when he left the graveyard, everything returned to normal. It seems that this aggressive breaking body sword energy still has some limitations, It can only be activated when there is death energy. If there are no dead people around, it can only be good at killing mosquitoes. However, this could also be a powerful move, especially since he has many enemies. The more he kills, the more new death energy there would be, making him stronger. Awesome! Even the usually modest Duan Yun couldn't help praising himself. Just by going out to chop some bamboo, he could realize such a deadly move. Truly, he is a one-in-a-million cultivation genius. When Duan Yun returned to the mountain villa, he was all smiles. Morong brothers and Xining looked at him puzzledly. They knew he went to chop bamboo and dump bodies, not realizing that this guy might have just met a new girl and fallen in love anew. "Why are you so happy?" Xining asked curiously. "Just now at the graveyard, I had a sudden insight. My martial arts improved a little bit," Duan Yun said. Hearing that Duan Yun said, "a little bit," with previous knowledge, Morong brothers' temples twitched. Especially seeing his beaming face, Morong brothers couldn't help but internally remark, "With his style, the increase is probably not just a little bit." So they couldn't resist mocking. "You gain insights just by digging up a corpse and chopping some bamboo?" Duan Yun shrugged his shoulders and humbly said, "Being full of energy, I felt it, just had to understand that little bit. Is it strenuous for 3 martial arts experts to repair 2 houses? The answer is still yes. Using bamboo as roofing sounds wonderful, but in practice, attention must be paid to the structure and method of assembly, as well as ensuring a tight fit. If done poorly, it is certain to leak water. However, fortunately, all 3 of them have steady hands and can craft the bamboo into any desired shape, even carving designs on it." After an afternoon of busy work, the 2 new houses were barely mended. Although the windows were still unstable, the window paper was affixed at last. Morong chose the innermost room, claiming it was quiet and more conducive for sleeping. In this forsaken place, with just the 3 of them coming and going, how much more quietness did they need? Duan Yun and Xin Ying's room was on the outside. Now each person had a room, and both Morong and Xining had moved into the new houses. The trio felt a sense of accomplishment. This sense of achievement was no less than the feeling they got from killing those 4 eunuchs. Because killing the eunuchs was destruction, while this time it was construction, the feeling was completely different. As the day turned to dusk, Duan Yun knew that his plan for revenge had to be postponed until tomorrow, but he was not in a hurry. Having comprehended the death energy breaking body sword energy, he was even more capable. At nearly the same time, in the most luxurious tea house in Wangchun City, the city's most talented storyteller was eloquently sharing amusing tales of the martial world. Despite the storyteller's skill, many of the audience's attention was drawn to 3 people in the tea house. 3 women. One woman in a green dress could be described as stunningly beautiful, while the 2 seated beside her, although with somewhat square faces, were identical twins exuding a strong feminine charm. They sat in a private room on the 2nd floor, with a window slightly open, continuously attracting the gazes of many men and women. These 3 naturally were Peacock, Hua Wen, and Hua Wu. "For days now, we have been here for 4 days, and you still haven't found him. Is it because the hospitality you've received isn't deep enough?" Peacock said hauntingly as she sipped her tea. At the word hospitality, Hua Wen and Hua Wu trembled all over. Hua Wu was half mad most of the time, but even a madwoman has an instinctive fear of certain things. During this time, Peacock had been treating them with inhuman cruelty, hanging them upside down and strangling them with a thin thread until their eyes rolled back were among the lighter tortures. That was what living worse than dying meant. This was living worse than dying. Having been heroes for half their lives and consumed big medicine for many years, Hua Wen and Hua Wu had never experienced such pain. Initially, the journey to find old Demon Duan had been smooth, and through the Jade Sword Stance Great Medicine introduction, the sisters had a faint sense of Duan Yun's location. But as they approached closer to Wangchun City, this sense grew weaker, often malfunctioning, until now it was almost imperceptible. During this period, Duan Yun's swordsmanship had advanced tremendously. Under his cultivation, the Jade Sword true understanding gradually transformed, moving beyond the scope of the original great medicine skills. He himself thus gradually detached from the concept of big medicine, making it exceedingly difficult for medicine cultivators like Hua Wen and Hua Wu to locate him. Even more formidable was the fact that this was only the first transformation of Jade Sword True Understanding. There may still be a second and third transformation in the future. The first transformation allowed Jade Sword True Chi to directly turn from illusory to tangible, even overcoming Heavenly Gang, directly causing the medicine cultivators Hua Wen and Hua Wu to fall. What about the second time? Unknown, no one knows, not even Duan Yun himself. Because how strong his genius could be, even he himself was not clear. Chapter 67 Young Hero. Time to get to work. The next day, the 6th of September, it was overcast, a day suitable for house cleaning and ill-advised for going out. Yet, Duan Yun was determined to leave the house because he had some serious business to attend to. Or rather, it was time to attend to his career. After all, how could a man not have a career of his own? He was going to take on the Red Building Fairy, take on the madmen of the Thunder God and Mother sect, and cleanse the filth of this world. He took the excuse of going out to make purchases to leave alone. But Shen Ying expressed her desire to go with him. Duan Yun hesitated and said, "I'm going to see if they sell the silkworm silk for your socks in Wangchun City. It's quite troublesome to enter and leave the city, so you better rest here." With that, he left with the spoils of looting corpses from before. Seeing this, Shen Ying was puzzled and said, "Why do I feel like he doesn't want to take me with him?" The Murong brothers thoughtfully said, "Maybe some things are inconvenient with a woman around." "What things?" Shen Ying asked, confused. "Like maybe he sensed a new sister," explained the Murong brothers. Shen Ying. The Murong brothers continued, "Even if he doesn't take you, you can still go out and take a walk. You've been nailed inside that chest for months. Surely, you've missed quite a few dramas." "Like what?" Shen Ying asked, puzzled. "Like, you don't know that in the past few months a figure called Old Demon Duan emerged, turning heroes into fallen ones with a few strokes, nonchalantly wiping out 2 major gangs, killing the Red Building Fairy who found her true love without arguing and turning her lover into a woman, and also inexplicably slaughtering disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect." Shen Ying exclaimed in surprise, "Old Demon Duan has done so much in just a few months?" She wasn't a martial world novice like Duan Yun. She knew the significance of the Red Building Fairy and the people of the Thunder God and Mother sect. These were not as easy to deal with as the eunuchs she encountered. Moreover, the notion of gender bending sounded both fresh and perverse. The Murong brothers said with a smile, "You don't even know yet that Old Demon Duan is also known as Duan Yue." Shen Ying. "What?" It did not take long before Shen Ying stepped out the door with a face full of intrigue. Today, her eagerness to follow Duan Yun outside was solely because after being confined in the chest for nearly 3 months, she really missed the joy of browsing and eating. And crucially, over these 3 months, she wondered whether any new attractive garments had been released. She was a person who loved collecting and wearing nice clothes. Clearly, Duan Yun was spot on with her skin-deep party label. Now, Duan Yun possessed the peerless knowledge of the Jade Sword True Understanding and 12 layers of Spring Rain, and even his previously weakest skill, Breaking Body Sword Energy, which was only suitable for killing mosquitoes, had suddenly become more powerful after a fortuitous epiphany, where the more people died, the stronger it became. His progress was evident. The promising future he envisioned upon leaving Lishui City was step by step becoming reality. Now that he had strengthened through painstaking efforts, it was time to embark on his career. He left Yusher Town and headed straight for Wangchun City. Today, he intended to gather information, pinpoint his enemies' locations. Wangchun City was the most suitable place for that, and he could also inquire about silkworm silk for sale. He had promised Shen Ying to give her 2 pairs of silk stockings, and he would deliver on that promise. Young hero Duan, true to his word. But to create stockings with effects like those of the Jade Sword Immortal skin in this world would surely not be easy. He had only heard that the best silk available to ordinary people was called Jade Silkworm Silk, which was rumored to weave into delicate and translucent fabrics with a luster like pearls and jade. Duan Yun speculated that with good enough materials and exquisite craftsmanship, Perhaps it was even possible to create lustrous or glossy silk stockings. Today, his primary objectives were to scout for intel and execute killings. Making silk stockings was secondary. He had to be firm in both endeavors. However, shortly after leaving Yusher town, Duan-Yun saw a human-shaped kite floating in the sky. Who would be flying a human-shaped kite in broad daylight? Truth to be told, a human floating in the sky was indeed a bit unsettling. Upon a closer look, Duan-Yun couldn't help but exclaim, "What the hell?" Turns out that what floated in the air was not a paper kite, but a person. A woman. That woman was clad in a red robe, and though her figure appeared voluptuous, she was able to float lightly in the sky. Below her was another woman, walking down the road with a thin line, occasionally darting about as if she were truly flying a kite. Due to the strong winds above, the woman's clothing was not tightly worn and she was prone to wardrobe malfunctions. Actually, there were quite a few people on the road, many of them hungry and thirsty bachelors. Yet despite this rare blessing, not many people stepped forward to watch. Some even avoided them from a distance. The reason was simple: fear of being ravished. Because this was a red building fairy from the Red House. Duan-Yun watched for a while, then continued on his way. He had heard storytellers say that the crazies from the Thunder God and Mother sect and the women from the Red House were all looking for him. At that time, he had only encountered people from the Thunder God and Mother sect, never expecting that while he secluded himself from the world these past days, the ladies from the Red House would come as well. Only when he arrived near Wangchun City did Duan-Yun realize what he had just seen was merely an appetizer. Outside the city gates were 5 or 6 red building women floating like kites, constantly scanning their surroundings. Apparently knowing the terror of the red building fairies, the crowd distanced themselves from them, especially the relatively handsome men. These red building fairies, when ravishing a handsome man, showed no mercy. The lighter cases resulted in men losing all their yang qi and becoming invalids, while the severe cases ended in death on the spot, their bodies desiccated like mummies. At this time, an especially ragged old man bravely stepped forward, staring fixedly at a red building fairy floating in the sky. This old man was a vagrant, his life nearing its end, and he had never touched a woman in his twilight years. Thus, facing the notoriously terrifying red building fairies, he was not afraid. He was willing to be killed by them. In an instant, the red building fairy above seemed to notice his gaze and truly floated down. Gazing at the beauty now close at hand, the old man's breathing became more and more labored. But the old man, who was initially not afraid and even somewhat excited, suddenly became fearful, his body breaking out in goosebumps. It was because the red building fairy suddenly lost all signs of life, her eyes turning completely black, without any white, like an abyss. She was still pretty, yet she exuded a terrifying, inhuman aura. Terrified out of his wits, the old man was startled as the red building fairy's wide sleeves shrouded his head and shoulders. In an instant, the old man was lifted into the air, but the exhilarating feeling of being ravished that he imagined did not come. Instead, a piercingly tragic scream echoed. Chunks of flesh rained down from the sky, and when the red building fairy rose back into the air, the old man fell back to the ground. But the man who fell was nothing more than a bloody skeleton, a sight that could scare someone to death. Such a scene reminded Duan-Yun of a horror film featuring a human head balloon. Many who saw this screamed in terror and fled, and the guards on the walls of Wangchun City, in response to this situation, simply turned a blind eye. Are these Red House mad women looking for me? Duan-Yun wondered as he watched the red building women float in the sky. Those who defile the fairy will die from divine punishment. At this moment, the floating red building fairy's sleeve dripped with blood as she spoke with a cold indifference. Duan-Yun took all of this in, etching it into his memory. These women were truly damned vile. Encountering a handsome man, they ravish without a word, wishing to ravish him to the point of leaving nothing behind, ravishing him to death. But when facing an ugly man, even though she herself provocatively messed up her own clothing, a mere extra glance in her direction was considered defilement, calling for the man to suffer cruel and fatal punishment. Such was the true nature of these so-called fairies. Too fairy-like, indeed. Duan Yun felt annoyed and continued walking forward. These mad women, every last one of them, were going to die in the next few days. It had been quite a few days since his last visit here, and even Wangchun City seemed to have fallen ill. Chapter 68. Old Demon Duan makes a move. It must have been the violently killed old man that drew too much attention, and Duan Yun walked so naturally that the red-building fairy floating in the air somehow didn't notice this handsome young hero's presence. Duan Yun paid silver coin and entered the city gate. In this city, there were also quite a few red-building fairies floating in the air. They floated above, like netherworld wraiths ready to claim lives, overlooking everything. Duan Yun inquired and found out that those who could float in the city were capable of controlling themselves and didn't commit immoral acts. Those who couldn't control themselves were all driven out of the city by the Mo sect. Facing such madwomen who commit immoral acts randomly, Duan Yun's already scant good impression of the Mo sect gradually faded, as they only expelled those who couldn't control themselves. In the center of Wangchun City stood a pitch-black stone tower. The stone tower was tall and imposing, solemn and majestic, with no idle people to be seen around. Pines and cypresses lined the avenue leading to the black tower. A serene atmosphere prevailed. Here was the Mo Tower, the most solemn and majestic place in the city. Many revered figures of Wangchun City's Mo sect lived here. At this time, inside a high floor of the Mo Tower, a very shrewd-looking old man with a goat beard looked at the women floating in the city like paper kites and said, "These women still refuse to leave?" A young man in black replied, "Elder, they say they are looking for Old Demon Duan." Old Demon Duan? Old Demon Duan. This newly emerged demon is truly evil to the core. The Mo sect elder couldn't help but sigh. In this half-month, the women from the Red House, the crazies from the Thunder God and Mother sect, and even the demonic monks from the Dusk Temple had come one after another, all for this Old Demon Duan. Old Demon Duan's deeds were also known to him. He liked to make men fallen, was cruel and murderous. What the Mo sect elder found demonic was that Old Demon Duan truly killed anyone. It was not just the small fry from the martial world factions being damaged beyond repair. Those lower-ranking ones of martial world were already playthings for the strong. But he killed even the untouchable figures like the women from the Red House, the crazies from the Thunder God and Mother sect, and the demonic monks from the Dusk Temple. Truly treating all equally. As if there was no one in the world he dared not offend. What slightly worried the Mo sect elder was that with Old Demon Duan's indiscriminate behavior, whether he might kill them too, or turn them into women and kill them. Thinking about the possibility of being turned into a woman and killed, the Mo sect elder suddenly became excited. What kind of novel experience would that be, and how seemed it more thrilling than creating a bullhead? Moments later, the Mo sect elder suddenly realized they were still the rulers of this city and gradually recovered from his excited state, saying, "It is said the women from the Red House killed someone by committing immoral acts. Why not drive them all out of the city?" His young confidant replied, "Elder, because with these women floating, the city's flesh trade has increased by at least 40%. Hearing this, the Mo sect elder's eyes lit up, saying, "That much? Although these women are terrifying, after all, they are fair and beautiful, dressed like that and floating in the city. It is inevitable that it stirs up sinful desires. Doesn't this improve the flesh trade? There is also the concern you have about too few babies in the city. Maybe this could increase the number as well." The confidant disciple explained. The Mo sect elder's attitude changed instantly, saying, "Since the effect is so good, let them float, and in the future we might even pay them to float. We must have both money and people. If we earn too little, how can we concentrate on our research?" At this moment, the Mo sect elder took a sip of tea and said, "The time is about right. This elder should also take care of his own business. Have your little Lanmei wash up and wait for me." "Yes." Red building fairies floated in the air, and on the ground, there were one or two people from the Thunder God and Mother sect walking around. They came here all because of Old Demon Duan. Duan Yun even saw his own portrait on the wanted poster, which was somewhat abstract, not nearly as handsome as he truly was. He went to one of the larger silk shops in the city and inquired about the yarn of jade silkworm. Duan Yun went in quickly and came out just as fast. They had stock, but sadly he couldn't afford it. First, one must have 300 taels of silver on their person to be qualified to see the goods. This reminded Duan Yun of the time in his previous life when the housing market was hottest, where you had to verify financial resources to view certain properties. Isn't this an insult to people? Even more insulting was that he really didn't have the money for the verification at the time. Due to its low production and high demand, jade silk has always been scarce, so it's actually pricier than gold. The first step of Duan Yun's stockings plan had failed, and fire blazed in his heart. One can't always vent such anger by going back to trouble the Murong brothers and Shining, right? Duan Yun has always been deeply loyal and caring towards his friends, even devising plans for the Murong brothers about incarcerating their sister. Likewise, he shows no mercy to his enemies. Starting with the Xuanxiong gang, he defeated them one by one. Thus, at this moment, he had grasped a blade and was heading somewhere in the city, when Ro was already too impatient and wanted to spin into action with him. Inside Wangchun City, Leng Yiming and Leng Yixue walked down the streets. Observing those red building fairies floating in the air and the madmen of the Thunder God and Mother sect they had just encountered on the road, their expressions grew solemn. Wangchun City was even more complex and chaotic than they had imagined. Beneath the facade of order was the trend of a gathering of demons dancing wildly. Unexpectedly, old demon Duan on his journey has attracted so many evil demons. These feared powers have long been avoided by many, and they are determined to save face this time. Whether old demon Duan is eliminated by these feared powers seeking revenge, or old demon Duan surpasses them in strength, punishing these evil demons, this is a matter of concern for many. However, for now, the group still has strength in numbers, leaving old demon Duan isolated and outnumbered, which is why he has been reluctant to show his face. After all, a single person is no match for a formidable power. Old demon Duan has shown weakness. To provoke Duan Yun to appear, the storytellers have already been paid silver, echoing similar talks. All of a sudden, Leng Yiming suddenly stopped in her tracks, her body trembling slightly. Seeing this, Leng Yixue asked, "What's wrong?" "I smell old demon Duan's scent." "He's nearby," said Leng Yiming with a pale face. Leng Yiming, who has a naturally keen sense of smell, had been sniffing old demon Duan's clothing left in his old residence in Lixue City and various uncollected personal belongings, just to remember his scent. Her olfactory talent was extremely strong, and once she remembered a scent she had encountered, she could detect it from a great distance. At this very moment, amidst the bustling streets of Wangchun City, she smelled the scent of old demon Duan and sensed that he was nearby. If not for the overcrowding and the myriad of smells here, she would even be able to find him quickly. The Divine Catcher sisters sensed the trail of the criminal they were tracking. The usual excitement was present, but intertwined with a deeper fear, because they knew if old demon Duan saw them and took a fancy to them, it would be the other party who would be excited. At this moment, a red building fairy flew over the tea house like a kite. Her gaze swept over the crowd, searching for the figure of old demon Duan while also looking for good-looking men to secretly defile. This was Mo sect territory, after all. Such acts of defilement could not be too reckless. Suddenly, she heard a gust of wind, akin to the sound of wind chimes. In the next instant, the red building woman turned sharply, her pupils contracting at speed, unable to help but flail her arms, as if to flee into the distance with wings. But in a flash, the wind chime-like sound pierced through her body. Thus, in the eyes of the onlookers, her body split into 4 sections, falling from the sky. The blood was whipped into mist by the quadrisectioning blade's wind, drizzling down like a spring rain. Only it was crimson. Another red building woman holding delicate threads let out a strange cry, turning to flee, only for the sword light to glint in the next moment, slicing her in two, perfectly bisected. Because the blade was too fast, her left eye and right eye could even see each other. The crowd erupted in piercing screams. Not far away, Leng Yiming and Leng Yixue saw this and their faces changed drastically. Old demon Duan had made his move. Chapter 69. Murder. Duan Yun delivered 4 consecutive spring rain blades in an effortless manner, decapitating a red building fairy flying in the air and then swiftly ending the life of the matchmaker. The feeling of assassinating the mad woman was exhilarating. After all, he had always treated murdering such creatures as his career. How could a man not have his own career? As the dismembered corpse of the red building fairy fell to the ground, blood raining down like a downpour, the nearby crowd could not help but let out a series of ear-piercing screams. Murder! Dismemberment! Run for it! Chaos erupted on the nearby streets as Lang Yiming and Lang Ishue clutched their blades, frantically searching for Duan Yun with tension and panic. Duan Yun ran along with the crowd, yelling, "Ah! Dismemberment! How terrifying! Run!" like an innocent bystander, blending in completely. In the midst of the chaos, 2 madmen from the Thunder God and Mother sect stood in the street, immovable as rocks in the sea. At the same time, the iron flutes on their heads seemed to sense something, trembling violently. But as soon as this sensation appeared, 2 loud pops were heard, and 2 bloody holes appeared in their chests. The jade sword finger sword energy accurately pierced through their hearts. Yet even so, these 2 Thunder God and Mother sect madmen did not fall. Instead, the iron flutes on their heads trembled even more violently, emitting a strange noise. The next moment, the strange noise dissipated as a sword light suddenly appeared and just as suddenly disappeared, and their heads were split open like watermelons, revealing their hollow insides. Following this, the 2 Thunder listeners from the Thunder God and Mother sect fell for good. As they fell, the blood holes pierced by the sword fingers on their chests were also shattered by the spring rain blade sword chi. Ah! Murder! Ah! Murder! Duan Yun and the woman next to him let out equally sharp screams, and the crowd surged again like a tide, with Duan Yun continuing to ride the wave outward. From beginning to end, these 2 disciples from the Thunder God and Mother sect never laid eyes on him. No, one did see his silhouette, but their eyes, along with half their brain, had already fallen to the ground. Duan Yun ran for a while, then stopped following the fleeing crowd, because at that time, many bloodthirsty spectators had returned to spectate the murder scene. The sight of bodies split into pieces, with blood and viscera spurting everywhere, was just too thrilling. Wangchun City was bustling, filled with all sorts of desires, but wealth was needed to satisfy these desires. The people's pressure was always high, so gawking at the excitement was one of their few cheap diversions, even if it meant they might be involved and lose their lives. Wangchun City was vast. The accident had occurred so suddenly that it had not had time to spread, and Duan Yun had already made it to the city gate. He left the city, deliberately passing by the red building women who had hung around the old man he'd killed earlier. Duan Yun, as a handsome young hero, caught the attention of a red building woman instantly, who then followed him. Another red building woman also trailed behind. Including the person flying the kite, there were a total of 4 red building women. "Sister, I saw him first," one said. "Sister, he passed through my territory. How can he be your man?" the other argued. The 2 women flying above were fighting over a man, and down below, the string pullers were not their underlings. The red building women took turns flying in search of men, just routine rotation. Thus, the 2 women below also argued about to whom the man belonged. "Sister, I've held back for so long. I can't wait any longer. The gentleman above awaits me to seduce enough men, and then fly back to the heavenly court. Sister, at your age, you're really like a wolf in heat, unable to hold back. Don't worry, little sister. I'll let him go halfway through without draining him dry, just for you." How could that be acceptable? By saying that, sister seems to be deliberately making things difficult for me. I only like the first taste. And you think you deserve the first taste? Sister, don't be angry. Let's just share him. As the 4 women in the sky and on the ground were arguing, Duan Yun pretended to be frightened and escaped towards the small grove ahead. "The squabbling stops now, our man has run away," said the younger sister in the sky. "Run? Hey, where can he run off to? But let's do as you say, we'll catch him first then share." Finally, after waiting for so long, a good catch has come along. Whoosh! The clothes of the Red House women fluttered in the wind. Like two hunting eagles, they pounced towards Duan-Yun, the lamb, with an eagerness like that of thirst. At this moment, Duan-Yun appeared weak and easy to topple, and was immediately tackled by the fastest Red House woman. In the instant of the fragrant breeze, Duan-Yun countergrabbed the woman's red lips with his hand and delivered his finger sword energy from a short distance, piercing her navel. The Red House fairy was suddenly injured and tried to struggle and fight back, while Duan-Yun had firmly captured her. These non-elder level Red House women, once in close quarters, would never think of escaping his demonic grasp, escaping the righteous punishment of this young hero. Breaking body sword energy. The breaking body sword energy, untainted by death energy, bored out from within, and like thousands of fine needles, it simultaneously penetrated the Red House woman's body, stirring. Quantity changes cause qualitative changes. Although the breaking body sword energy is like scraping, that snake also got scraped to death alive. Now, the Red House fairy is no different from that snake, firmly bound by Duan-Yun, suffering the excruciating pain of dismemberment. She was in extreme pain, her body shaking violently, but in the eyes of her companions, she had trembled into another realm. So soon? Is sister this sensitive today? If previously, when this Red House woman was torturing an old man, she was skinning him piece by piece, then now Duan-Yun is giving her an even more tortuous death by dismemberment. As the breaking body sword energy stirred violently, her flesh and innards started to rupture, as if every piece of flesh in her body was in severe pain, to the point where she rolled her eyes back. Not like the disappearing whiteness of the eyes during the practice of cultivation techniques, it was the literal rolling back of the eyes. At this time, the younger sister approached, laughing. "Sister, you're enjoying it so much. Let your sister join you." But in the next moment, her body, which was about to mount Duan-Yun, stopped in its tracks, because she saw that handsome prey smiling at her. The smell of blood rushed over in an instant, and then she saw her sister's body turning into a mass of blood and flesh, 1,000 wounds breaking open. The breaking body sword energy hadn't fused with death energy, but in this period of time, it had also risen with the tide along with Duan-Yun. The scene was horrifying to the extreme. What's happening? The younger sister felt fear and couldn't help but retract her jade feet that were mounting Duan-Yun. Sadly, it was too late. A flash of sword light suddenly appeared, and those pair of jade feet were chopped off from the body, tumbling to the ground. Then, her body was segmented into several parts, as the rotating quadruple spring rain blades exploded inside her. Thus, in the eyes of the other two Red House women who were pulling the strings, this fellow sect member suddenly shattered like a porcelain vase into pieces. The scene was eerie and terrifying to the extreme. The head of the dismembered Red House woman, along with the neck, fell to the ground and did not die immediately, because Duan-Yun's blade was too fast, and also because their fairy constitution was extraordinary compared to ordinary people. So, she saw her sister covered in blood, lying on the ground, with her head stepped under the foot of that prey, same as herself, certainly doomed. Ghosts! The two string-pulling Red House women realized the sudden change, panicked to the core, turned, and were about to fly away. But due to their extreme nervousness, they forgot to untie the strings connected to their sex sisters. The white strings tensed, and their ascending bodies were suddenly yanked down. Before they could even look back, the sound of the sword chi tearing through the air had already pierced their bodies. Hence, the four Red House mad women were split into 14 pieces, falling to the ground. In the distance, Lang Yiming and Lang Ishua lay in the bushes, watching this scene through a device called far-seeing glass, petrified to the point of holding their breath. At this time, the sisters suddenly discovered old Demon Duan was using the blood of these Red House women to write something. Chapter 70. The one who acts for heaven. Even with the concealing breath skills enhancing them and keeping a safe enough distance, it should be impossible for the two sisters Lang Yiming and Lang Ishua to be discovered. Yet at this moment they were still extremely nervous. Extremely nervous. more so than the first time they were involved in a bloody case. This absurd feeling was like the time Leng Yiming stood in the cellar, that even though old demon Duan was thousands of miles away, she had an illusion that he might appear behind her at any moment. Today, having witnessed Duan Yun in action for the first time, the sisters felt an even deeper fear towards him. Throughout their investigation, the sisters gathered considerable information from the victim Mr. Liu and other knowledgeable sources. Similar to when they investigated the slaughter in Lishui City and the case involving the county magistrate, with both involving the Xuanxiong gang, the intelligence stated that Duan Yun, or Old Demon Duan, possessed powerful finger skills and his swordsmanship was quite exceptional. During the killing of Red Building women at the Liu Mansion, there was even a vision of the sword immortal Dharma. However, the sisters still harbored a bit of hope, believing that with their combined strength and extensive experience, there might still be a sliver of chance against Old Demon Duan. But what they witnessed through the telescope had completely extinguished that hope. This old demon was not only masterful in finger skills and swordsmanship, but wielding a knife was also unparalleled. The Red Building woman who he stepped on was full of tiny holes, a method that eluded their understanding and they found terrifying. Old Demon Duan's strength was this horrifying. Because of their overwhelming fear, they even resisted the instinctive urge to take a sharp breath, as if fearing that drawing this breath would attract Old Demon Duan to them. At this moment, the image of Duan Yun holding a knife and stepping on a fairy's head overlapped in the minds of Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue with the image of the green-faced Duan Yun when he first stepped into the martial world in the desolate wilderness. What an absurd and ridiculous scene. Back in the wilderness, when the sisters first encountered this demon, they thought they had met a novice in the martial world. Lang Yiming even enlightened him with some martial world knowledge, acting as a senior. When parting, Duan Yun wanted to ask for her name. She didn't tell him, even chastising him for being foolishly deluded. That this demon didn't become enraged at her refusal, pushing her down and executing her on the spot. Was it due to her good luck, or is it that the demon's temperament was unpredictable? At this time, the blood characters Old Demon Duan had written on the ground had been finished. Through the invaluable telescope, the sisters could vaguely make out the words. Acting for heaven is none other than young hero Murong Fu. Duan Yun looked at the row of blood characters, very satisfied, but also a bit regretful. The regret was that after a round through the city, he found that the name Duan Yun had become even more synonymous with Old Demon Duan than before. Upon hearing his name Duan Yun, coupled with his youthful handsome appearance, people would become cautious and take a few extra glances. It had been dirted by those with malicious intents. It's not viable to use at the moment. So Duan Yun decided to use a stage name. In the perilous martial world, using a stage name is quite common. This would be his first step in reviving the name of a heroic young man. Of course, he wouldn't give up on clearing his actual name, Duan Yun. Once he's cut through these malicious forces spreading rumors about him, the name would eventually be cleared. Of course, he also thought of Hua Wen and Hua Wu, clearing the rumors through them as the parties in question would naturally be more straightforward. It's a pity they've had so many outrageous rumors fabricated about them for so many days, and yet there hasn't been any news of them at all. They might have encountered trouble. Hua Wen and Hua Wu were the first he imparted his cultivation techniques to. It must be the work of dark forces. Certainly, these guys are after me and my friends. They're despicable and must be annihilated thoroughly. He just hopes that Hua Wen and Hua Wu are safe, and he needs to find an opportunity to locate them. Difficulties are only temporary. They, the Shining Knights, despite being slandered as fallen women and old demons, will eventually conquer the darkness. Afterward, Duan Yun began to search the bodies, using his sword chi to shred the wounds on the corpses that bore the marks of Jade's sword finger sword energy. In the eyes of Lang Ilian and Lang Yiming, the two goddess catchers with ample bosoms, this old demon Duan seemed to have a penchant for mutilating corpses. After searching through a few bodies, Duan Yun finally found a small gold ring in the cleavage of a Red Building woman, and from another's leg he peeled off a silver anklet. These Red Building women, wearing only thin gauze dresses without even an undergarment, clearly had little to no place to hide anything on their bodies. Hence, It's evident they always traveled this light. These damn mad women didn't even pay the men they seduced, not to mention for their daily food and expenses. Killing these kinds of creatures provided a sense of relief. Walking on the streets would feel safer. For instance, just now, if he wasn't more skillful, he would have been overpowered by these 4 Red House mad women. All he could say was that being a handsome young hero was indeed very difficult. Afterward, Duan Yun left. Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue, looking at the bodies scattered on the ground and the row of bloody characters, felt terror-stricken. Acting for heaven? Murong Fu, the young hero? Even now, they still felt like they were in a nightmare, because old Demon Duan, who had just committed the murders, was truly terrifying. This time old Demon Duan used a fake name. It's a sign he wants to completely muddy the waters and create a bloody storm, Lang Yishue speculated. Sister, should we go take a look at the bodies? Lang Yiming's voice trembled as she spoke. Lang Yishue, admittedly calmer, but only slightly, said, "Wait a moment." She lay there, buttocks perked up, continuing to scan the area with her binoculars, and said, "Someone's coming." With the incident happening in the city, and the victims being none other than the Red Building Fairies and disciples of Thunder God and Mother Sect, people from these two forces were quick to react. Hong Ying was one of the oldest elders within the Red House, while her daughter Hong Yu was among the most talented young fairies. Had it not been for the emergence of the daughter of Xian Di, with her natural immortal law, destined to become the future Tower Master, Hong Ying and her daughter would have been the first under the 3 Tower Masters for a long time. While the 3 Tower Masters cultivated the immortal law, detached from worldly affairs, concerned only with seducing heavenly proud young men, Hong Ying and her daughter were actually the face of the Red House in the martial world. Therefore, the Kill Old Demon Duan Immortal Punishment mission was assigned to Hong Ying and her daughter. With the mother temporarily absent from Wangchun City, Hong Yu was the leader of the group of Red Building Fairies. After discovering the senseless murder of their fairy in the city, she, the one with the best qinggong, was the first to track and reach the scene. The second to arrive was a man with darkened skin and 2 iron flutes stuck in his hair from Thunder God and Mother Sect. Compared to the average disciple of the sect, this man's iron flutes were thicker and longer, and the holes in his head to accommodate them were deeper and wider, making him look exceptionally bizarre. He was Tai Dishing, the 3rd elder of Thunder God and Mother Sect. People from the sect relied on thunder listening for cultivation, spread all over the world. But still, with a profound heritage, when their disciples were senselessly killed by old Demon Duan, 3rd elder Tai Dishing, who was currently in Yun state, rapidly assembled over a dozen skilled disciples to settle the score with old Demon Duan. These days, by using thunder listening techniques, they had sensed old Demon Duan's whereabouts. In the vicinity of Wangchun City, however, the large graveyard outside the city had disrupted their techniques, preventing them from pinpointing old Demon Duan's location accurately. The adversary had not appeared, and he had thought the scoundrel was scared, only to find today that disciples within the city had been poisoned. Old Demon Duan had a big gaudy gall. The Red House and Thunder God and Mother Sect as martial world's terrifying sects, one focused on seducing men into flying, the other on listening to thunder and achieving sudden enlightenment, always kept to their own territories and had little overlap. But now they had come together. Hong Yu and Tai Dishing exchanged a glance. Although they said nothing, they had tacitly agreed to join forces against old Demon Duan. Without old Demon Duan's death, they could never save face. Without face, how could they mix in the martial world? Looking at the row of bloodied characters, acting for heaven, Murong Fu the young hero indeed. Hong Yu and Tai Dishing's expressions grew complex. Where did this Murong Fu, the young hero, come from all of a sudden? This must be another of old Demon Duan's aliases, right? Suddenly, the iron flute on top of Tai Dishing's head trembled slightly, and he looked in a certain direction in the forest. "Who's there? Come out." From the gloomy depths of the wilderness, a handsome young man emerged. Duan Yun, caressing the handle of his blade, proclaimed proudly, "I don't change my name, nor my title when I sit. I am Murong Fu, acting for heaven. Old Demon Duan. Old Demon Duan." Tai Dishing and Hong Yu, their expressions dramatically changed, exclaimed in unison. Hearing these three words, Duan Yun's defenses broke down. Are you addicted to slandering me? I said call me young hero, call me young hero. I'm already going by Murong Fu. And you bastards are still slandering me? Damn it. Damn it. Damn teeth. Seeing this, Tai Dishing and Hong Yu both stepped back in unison, because they sensed that terrifyingly powerful murderous intent, as vast as a river, coming from him. In the next instant, old demon Duan charged at them. Chapter 71. The Wrath of Old Demon Duan. Duan Yun had just committed murder and, while it seemed he had left, was actually lying in wait in the shadows. Drawing from his experience of watching martial arts dramas, the smaller characters are often killed first. Then the bigger, older ones would investigate, clucking about before planning to take him down. What he planned to do was to wait patiently like a hunter for his prey and kill all these higher-ups in one go. He had only killed 8 underlings today, a wholly unsatisfactory tally. How could one expand one's undertakings without being more ambitious and bold? Sure enough, 2 bigger fish took the bait and showed up. If killing those underlings was his first step on the path of a young hero, then taking down these higher-ups was the second step to establishing his reputation. It had to be admitted that these big shots were indeed much more formidable than the small fry, and Thunder, listening quickly, detected his presence. Since he had been discovered, he dropped the act. He continued to act for heaven and pursued his cause. He had just pompously announced his identity as a young hero, only to see those 2 scoundrels defame him by calling him Demon Duan. Were they illiterate or were they deliberately picking a quarrel? Thinking of the slanders he had suffered recently, which had forced him to temporarily adopt a pseudonym, these 2 still stubbornly called him Old Demon Duan. Damnable! Utterly damnable! The flames in Duan Yun's heart ignited his cosmos in an instant. Rotate. The 6th layer of Spring Rain Revolve. Black Silk, Embrace Sparrow Tail. Right at the first exchange, Duan Yun unleashed his big move. Hong Yu and Tai Dishing, both masters within the Tongyu realm, were immediately aware of the immense danger. They had been hunting Old Demon Duan for some time, and although they appeared to be the predators, they never underestimated the adversary. Deep down, they even harbored some fear for the crazy old demon who dared to kill their fellow sect members and was infamous for bringing others to their knees. In the martial world, it was usually they who murdered and seduced others, with very few ever daring to take them on single-handedly. Yet here was this new villain Old Demon Duan who had done just that. Now, seeing the cool and indifferent figure of the Sword Immortal Dharma of Jade Sword emerge, both of them treated it as a formidable enemy and dared not underestimate him. In the next instant, the spinning sword chi of the 6th layer broke through the air, slicing the air in front to tatters, creating a turbulent flow of snowy white. Tai Dishing spread his arms, his iron flute trembling on top of his head and even oozing blood. This was the sign that Tai Dishing had pushed his power to the limit. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Blue electric currents emerged from the iron flute, coursing around his sturdy body, taking the form of a mace. Thunderbolt Mace. The Thunderbolt Mace swept across, colliding with the 6th layer, Spring Rain. Like the boom of thunder, a sudden explosion rang out. Sword chi clashed with thunder, distorting and warping the surrounding air. The spinning sword chi and the eerie blue electric arcs wildly ricocheted, blasting deep pits into the ground. With all his might, Tai Dishing managed to hold off the 5th layer of the Spring Rain rotation, but he couldn't stop the 6th. The Thunderbolt Mace shattered, and the remaining spin of Spring Rain hit him squarely in the abdomen. Blood splattered everywhere. Had it not been for his body being as tough as steel due to his method of channeling electricity, his belly might have been split open on the spot. At this moment, Hong Yu had already employed her ghostly body technique and glided behind Duan Yun. Her fingernails were as long and sharp as spikes, gleaming with a metallic sheen. While Duan Yun was exchanging blows with Tai Dishing, she instantly launched a sneak attack. Her elongated nails, wrapped in a cold mist, struck at Duan Yun's neck like a poisonous snake. But in the next instant, the Dharma image of Jade Sword Immortal, which had been facing away from her, suddenly unfurled dozens of jade discs, firing off numerous strands of jade sword energy at her. Though startled, Hong Yu was not thrown into disarray. With a flick of her flimsy sleeves, the air twisted into ripples, like that of water. Star shift. The streaks of jade sword energy were deflected, some even reversed direction towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun countered with a backhanded elbow strike. Elbow sword, breaking forth from his elbow, was incredibly tyrannical, easily rupturing the incoming sword chi, and accelerated midway, piercing straight through Hong Yu's thigh. Hong Yu let out a stifled groan. Her form staggered momentarily, nearly tumbling from the sky. At that moment, Duan Yun stepped forward with a loud stomp, crushing the skull of a dead red building woman, and the sword finger struck again. Tai Dishing and Hong Yu ambushed old demon Duan together, with the intention of not giving him a chance to breathe. However, old demon Duan continued to unleash moves in rapid succession. His sword chi crisscrossed, without taking a breath, instead putting Heavenly Gang on the back foot, leaving them breathless. Breaking body sword energy. This time, the sword chi shot out by the sword finger was like silk rain, both thin and fast. Tai Dishing was injured with a single hit and was greatly alarmed, but seeing this silk-like sword chi, he exhaled in relief. He was very confident that he could take this level of sword chi and even counterattack. The old demon had just continuously launched attacks, fighting 2 against 1, seemingly with endless true chi. But in the end, he was human. This sword chi showed signs of weakness. But in the next instant, an ear-piercing hum resounded. The originally pale sword chi turned black in the blink of an eye, growing in power significantly. In a panic, Tai Dishing gathered his strength, and his hand palm flashed with thunder, posing to block. But it was too late. Before the palm thunder could form, it was pierced by the breaking body sword energy fused with death energy, and his palm was pierced simultaneously. An inky hole appeared in Tai Dishing's palm, making him sweat coldly from pain. But what was even more terrifying was that the thunderous hum at this moment grew louder instead of diminishing. That was the breaking body sword energy becoming stronger after merging with the death energy. The black-colored breaking body sword energy, carrying the breath of death, after breaking through the palm, directly stabbed into his abdomen. This time, his iron-strong flesh was directly penetrated and exploded, and blood and intestines burst open. Ah! The piercing pain caused Tai Dishing to let out a shrill scream. Yet the breaking body sword energy continued to surge and grow darker, enveloping his head in a misty rain-like fashion. The scream of the Thunder God and Mother Sect Elder shattered in an instant because his head, along with his mouth and tongue, was penetrated by the sword chi and riddled with holes, continuously emitting black death energy. Thunder listening for 50 years, the head of Tai Dishing had long adapted to piercings of various sizes. But this level of penetration he could not adapt to, because his head was all but rotten. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Duan Yun suddenly felt goosebumps on the back of his neck. The breaking body sword energy emerged from his neck, merging with the death energy around him, turning pitch black. With a loud crack, a scorching finger strength that had been silently targeting his neck collided with the black breaking body sword energy, both collapsing together. Upon seeing Tai Dishing's tragic state and witnessing the failed surprise attack of the immortal Ling finger, Hong Yu dared not continue the battle. She had her eyeballs recede, and her long nails on her right thumb and index finger surged forward. They forcefully detached from her fingers like 2 flying knives, stabbing towards Duan Yun. Using the recoil from this force, she floated away to a higher and farther place, seeking to escape. Duan Yun lifted his foot and delivered a whipping shot. The toe sword broke through the shoe's surface, howling as it went forth, shattering the 2 bloody nails. He was aroused by the fight. The red building woman wanted to escape, but he was not about to give such a crooked path the chance to do so. Run your ass. Duan Yun's head was steaming with white smoke as he swept out with a slash, for layers of spring rain spun out, initially stacked together, but halfway through, It separated with a whoosh into four, slashing towards the Red House madwoman. Hong Yu was indeed among the most formidable of the young immortal females, her form changing continuously 4 times in midair, more ghostly than ghosts. Alas, she avoided the tricky and vicious 3 layers of spring rain, but was too late for the last. With a whoosh, her shapely and round legs were severed, falling from the sky. Even so, her hands were still moving nimbly in the air, and her body without legs was speeding even faster. Holy shit! Duan Yun hadn't expected this mad woman to escape so fast without legs and hurriedly gave chase. Hong Yu, propelled by her hands in midair, shouted in horror as she moved, "Help! Help me! Old Demon Duan is murdering!" Hearing the 3 words Old Demon Duan, Duan Yun's forehead vein suddenly bulged. Damn! Young hero! Young hero! Young hero! Can't this mad woman read? Duan Yun's eyes glared fiercely, and he chased even faster. Chapter 72. Stop there, young hero. I've come to kill you. Duan Yun chased the legless Hong Yu, and along the way, several more jade sword finger attacks whistled through the air. Only 2 to 3 miles away from the gates of Wangchun City, and for the gracefully unique movement technique of Hong Yu, it would take merely the time to drink a bowl of water. Such a short amount of time, 3 or 4 miles were just a trifle in her eyes usually, but in this duration, she was hit by another 6-finger sword energies. Without her legs, and several more bloody holes on her body, the shadow of death enveloped her like maggots boring into the bone. As the most arrogant young fairy of Red House, Hong Yu had never felt so close to the netherworld. Although such fairies had fallen to the mortal world, they absolutely couldn't descend to hell. Her hands waving even more swiftly, she opened her blood-drenched red lips and yelled ahead, "Help! Help me! Old Demon Duan is murdering!" Thus, in the eyes of the Wangchun city guards, a plump woman with only her upper half left, hands moving vigorously as if flying, turned into a blur. She crawled on the ground one moment and flew through the air the next, speeding towards this side. Such a scene was truly terrifying, like a half-bodied ghost out for vengeance. At that moment, the city guards could no longer hold on, and cried out in horror, "Quick! Close the city gates! Hold it right there, you illiterate mad woman! Young hero me is coming to kill you!" Hong Yu turned her head to look, and was scared half to death. She saw old Demon Duan right behind her, left hand wielding a knife, right hand forming a sword finger as he madly pursued her. If she saw such a handsome face under normal circumstances, her first reaction in mind would surely be to have her way with him, fiercely and relentlessly, until she ascended to the heavens. But at this moment all she wanted was to flee, because this handsome man shouting that he was a young hero, while rushing over, was none other than the murderous old Demon Duan. Her legs were gone, 7 or 8 bloody holes on her body, her life nearly lost, all thanks to this old demon. Being one of the top 3 young female fairies in the Red House, Hong Yu was always haughty and prideful. Even the sex heavenly prides whom she pleased herself with seldom faced setbacks and rarely felt fear. But this time, she was almost scared out of her wits. What shocked Hong Yu was that, in response to her cries for help, Wangchun City was actually closing its gates. "Do you want me to die?" With a pap, the swiftly moving hand's owner tumbled, dust flying up. It was because she was hit by another jade sword finger at the back of her neck. The jade sword finger exploded a bloody hole in her neck, and she felt her entire body was full of holes, blood flowing everywhere. But in the next instant, Hong Yu climbed up again with strong resolve, hands moving as if flying. Ahead, the city gates were already closing, but to get far away from old Demon Duan, she would do anything. Swish, 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 swish. Her hands waved even more forcefully. The entire half of her body somehow managed to climb up the city wall at an astonishing speed. Duan Yun raised his hand and launched 2 more jade sword finger strikes. These 2 jade sword finger strikes were extremely precise, with one even piercing through her skull. But Hong Yu only trembled a bit, and continued to climb upward. The last jade sword finger strike she took was just as she flipped over the edge of the city wall. This finger sword was so powerful it went from her buttocks through her abdomen, and her half-body was knocked rolling by this force, tumbling directly down into the city following the wall. Even Duan Yun was stunned. As expected of the big game he had waited patiently for, such tenacity in the face of death was truly unprecedented in his life. Hong Yu heavily fell from the city tower, her body full of holes, her eyes completely white, relying solely on the sustaining force provided by her cultivation technique. Dragging a long trail of blood, Hong Yu, after falling off the city wall, was still crawling. Inside Wangchun City, a series of piercing screams emitted, and many bloodthirsty onlookers brave enough to watch a dismembering scene were thoroughly frightened by the sight of half a body crawling on the ground, screaming as they ran away in panic. The crowd dispersed, even though old demon Duan was still outside the city, not having come in, but Hong Yu kept crawling, as if the old demon was still behind her, shouting things like young hero and mad woman, about to rush over and kill her. At this moment, Hua Wen and Hua Wu, the twin sisters who Duan Yun had been worried about transferring his power to, along with Peacock, were standing on a street. They were looking at the bodies of two disciples from Thunder God and Mother Sect. Peacock asked, "It's him, right?" Hua Wen shook her head. "Not sure. Didn't detect the sword chi. You can't see it because you haven't reached that level." Although their hearts were shattered by a single slash, there was a trace of finger sword energy left behind. Peacock mocked Hua Wen, who had been practicing the sword for many years. Hua Wen said nothing, nor dared to speak. He was extremely frightened at the moment. He feared Peacock, but even more so, he dreaded old demon Duan. If asked which of the two frightened him more, he wouldn't be able to say. The fear Peacock instilled was right before his eyes. Such inhuman beauty instinctively invoked terror, compounded by the repeated torment and humiliation of these past days which had been a nightmare for both sisters. Yet even so, their fear of old demon Duan was no less than that of the present Peacock. If Peacock's terror was imminent and current, then the terror of old demon Duan was that of the unknown. Last time was just an accidental meeting, where they were deceived from reputable medicine cultivators to fallen women. But what about this encounter? It was indescribable, utterly indescribable. Peacock could be said to be the most cruel and terrifying bird in the world, but what species old demon Duan was, they still could not say to this day. Thinking about how old demon Duan was just here, right here killing people, two different levels of fear interwove in Hua Wen's heart. Hua Wen felt it was too difficult, while Hua Wu was on the brink of madness. She had already started stripping, revealing her body, before Hua Wen stopped her. Recently, her sister's mental state has become increasingly abnormal, and she even accidentally ran out for 2 days. At this moment, two individuals from the Thunder God and Mother Sect with iron flutes in their hair walked over. The one walking in front was covered with tadpole-like characters, which seemed to have a strange suction force. If you looked at them a little longer, you would feel dizzy, as if getting a fever. The task of strangling old demon Duan was initiated by the second elder of the sect, but the strongest in combat power in this operation was this fourth elder. Unlike his martial brother, the sounds of thunder he heard were chaotic and diverse. He, however, most frequently heard the sound of killing from thunder. Hence, he was most skilled at killing. Looking at the two sect disciples who had died unnatural deaths, fourth elder remained silent, with a strong urge to kill. Thus, his gaze quickly swept around and landed on Hua Wen, Hua Wu, and Peacock. The prettier the woman, the more satisfying it was to kill her. But in the next moment, he reined in his killing intent and with a rather cautious look, glanced at the woman in green and walked away. Peacock also left, with Hua Wen and Hua Wu following closely behind, step by step. Suddenly, there was a surge of people ahead. This kind of occurrence had happened several times today, and each time people had died. As usual, the three of Peacock went upstream against the crowd. This time, even Peacock raised her eyebrows at the scene. A half-body covered with blood holes, with an almost decaying head, was rapidly climbing with both hands, dragging a long, thick trail of blood on the ground. As she crawled, she frantically looked behind her, constantly spouting phrases. "He's coming! He has arrived. Young hero. Old demon. Ah! A red figure descended like a cloud of mist and propped her up. The woman was wearing a transparent red gauze dress, her hair half black and half white, exuding a peculiar charm. This person was Hong Ying, the elder of Red House. Seeing her daughter in such a state, she couldn't believe it was real. Her fairy-like daughter was about to perish. Who did this? Where are they? Hong Ying asked.
Young hero.
He has arrived. Mother, I'm scared. No sooner had the words fallen than Red Building Fairy Hongyu, who had ascended such a distance to her extreme, drew her last breath. The woman spoke of young hero, but Hua Wan and Hua Wu's bodies couldn't help but shudder. They were all too familiar with the blood cavities on her body and head. Old Demon Duan. Seeing the tragic death of the Red Building women Hongyu, they deeply realized that even though they were mentally prepared, the cruelty and terror of Old Demon Duan's methods still surpassed their imagination. What kind of psychopath could turn someone into such a frightful sight before their death? At this moment, Peacock couldn't help but reveal an enchanting smile. Her eyes crazed as she exclaimed, Old Demon Duan is really something. If he were to be turned into a woman and fallen, it would be so exciting to violate him. Chapter 73, The Kind-Hearted and Handsome Old Demon Duan. Young hero Duan is kind-hearted. Young hero Duan is not particularly vindictive. Even when that Red Building woman insisted on slandering him as Old Demon Duan, refusing to even address him as young hero, he merely chopped off her legs and blew more than a dozen bloody holes through her head and body. Having discovered that she could still climb over the city wall and flee with both hands and swift steps, he stopped chasing. He was moved by her will to live and her formidable vitality. If she could survive under such conditions, it was a gift from the heavens, something he had no right to contravene. He would simply have to strike harder the next time they met. It could only be said that the few Red Building women who had died first were lacking. The death energy they provided was only enough to kill the lunatics from the Thunder God and Mother sect and not to kill this Red Building woman on the spot, allowing her to run so far, so fast, suffer so much, and even tire him out. At this point, Duan Yun felt that his workload for the day was about sufficient. He was sweating from exhaustion. If he had rashly charged into the city earlier and walked into an ambush, the loss would not have been worth the gain. He reluctantly took a step back to give everyone a breath of fresh air. Walking back, Duan Yun noticed his shoes had broken once again, exposing his big toe. This toe soared, he might as well go barefoot or wear sandals next time. The corpses still lay there, obedient and neat. Duan Yun began to search the bodies. The Red Building women had already been searched, so what remained were these lunatics from the Thunder God and Mother sect. This fallen fellow was the most powerful lunatic he had encountered so far, capable of forming and wielding the power of thunder and lightning, withstanding his six-fold spring rain onslaught. Thus, Duan Yun searched the corpse with extra care. But like the other lunatics, this one had nothing on him, so he could only take the iron flute from his head. Then he tore open the lunatic's clothes. He had long noticed some tadpole script-like text on the lunatic's body that resembled the runes on the pieces of divine iron from the Mother sect. These no doubt had to do with the mystery of the lunatic's control over the power of thunder and lightning. Despite not understanding these tadpole scripts at all and feeling a sense of eeriness, as if they were gaping mouths trying to suck him in, he was, after all, 1 in 10,000 in terms of cultivation talent. Figuring it out was just a matter of time. So, Duan Yun cut the skin with the tadpole script off the lunatic's body. Holding the human skin in his hands was disgusting and horrifying. He needed to find some paper to jot down these runes. Which respectable young hero would carry around a piece of human skin at all times? Afterward, Duan Yun left. This time, his departure was more thorough, and unlike last time, he did not lurk around for ambushes. Goddess catchers Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue, who had witnessed everything from the distant bushes, were scared out of their wits. To say their bodies were drenched in cold sweat failed to fully describe their fear. Up to now, their legs were still tightly clamped together. If they had listened to Lang Yiming and checked the corpses just now, the consequences would have been unthinkable. This demon's thoughts were indeed unfathomable, extremely cunning. He did not leave after killing. Instead, he lay in wait like hunting for rabbits. They were almost turned into the rabbits themselves. There was cunning in this, but more than that, it was the audacity of one with exceptional talent. Joint forces of Tongyu realm masters from the Thunder God and Mother sect and the Red House were brutally counterkilled. The image of the red building woman, with only half a body, fleeing while chased by the old demon, truly frightened them. It left them numb with fear. Although they watched from a distance with telescopic lenses, they felt a terrifying sense of being on the scene. Only after more than half an hour, when there was still no movement, did Lung Yiming and Lung Ishue finally breathe a sigh of relief. This demon would not be coming back for the time being. The fact that their superiors expected them to investigate such a demon, they really seemed to be sending them to their demise. At this point, the two sisters lost even the slim chance of reaping the fisherman's profit while sitting idly by. Duan Yun went to small spring town with his spoils of war. Today, he had promised Shining and the Murong brothers to procure some supplies. This was not something he could delay, otherwise they would think he was neglecting his responsibilities. This feeling of doing business was quite marvelous. Compared to the bloody and foul wind of Wangchun City, small spring town was tranquil and peaceful. A major drawback of the ancient world was that sending a message, whether releasing pigeons or using runners, was very time-consuming. But at this moment, this drawback seemed to take on a romantic flair. Just a moment ago, you were nervously enacting justice on behalf of heaven in Wangchun City, facing blood and flesh, screams, and suddenly, in the blink of an eye, you arrive at another place where, because news has not arrived, everything is as it always has been. The dim light casts a pleasant warmth on people. Duan Yun first went to a bookstore to buy some paper and ink, mainly because he had a human skin tucked in his bosom, which even as a secret book was quite uncomfortable. He intended to transcribe it before contemplating it further. It affects one's appetite a bit, contemplating cultivation techniques from a human skin you've peeled yourself. Then, it was time to exchange trophies like the gold mask for silver, and buy some food and drinks to bring back. Now Yuju Villa had 3 mouths to feed. Even the Murong brothers, who didn't usually eat much, had been dining more frequently lately, so the consumption was significant. After Duan Yun bought rice and meat, he was about to go buy wine when he found Shining waving at him from a tea house. A moment later, Shining came out of the tea house, and Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "Why did you come out too?" Shining replied, "Of course, I came out for a stroll. The storyteller in here tells the funniest stories." Duan Yun looked at the tea house and asked, "What's so funny?" "He's talking about old demon Duan, who has the same name as you. Every time I hear about the manor master of Gao family manor, whose 4 tender wives were ridden by pigs on the same day because old demon Duan used a passion-stimulating spell on the pigs, I can't help but want to laugh, ha ha ha. Especially when I think about you having the same name as old demon Duan. It's even funnier, ha ha ha." As Shining spoke, she couldn't help but start laughing. Her eyes curved like crescent moons as she laughed. Duan Yun couldn't help but retort, "Now even pigs riding people is something old demon Duan came up with?" There's also the tale of the Chongling sect's female sword immortal, suddenly liberating her nature and becoming a prostitute in a brothel, claiming that her mind was corrupted by old demon Duan. Old demon Duan is responsible for too many things. Shen Ying discussed the stories of old demon Duan she heard today with great interest. Duan Yun glanced inside the tea house and asked, "Is the storyteller the one with a limp leg? Have you also listened to his storytelling?" asked Shen Ying. Duan Yun nodded. I used to listen often. Let's go. Let's buy some more things and then head back." Shen Ying refused. "The storyteller still has the second half to go. I will come back after listening to it." Duan Yun nodded and said, "All right then." In the outhouse, the limping storyteller Old Gua was standing on one leg, pissing in the stance of a golden rooster. He had enjoyed telling his story today, and so had the guests. It was just hard on his throat. He couldn't help but cough a few times, clearing his throat. Storytelling was a physically demanding job. He needed to catch his breath for a while before the second half. He had realized that lately, old demon Duan was a key to wealth. Speaking of him meant receiving more tips. Old Gua finished peeing, shook it off, and was just about to leave with his crutch when everything suddenly went dark before his eyes. A sack over his head, a familiar darkness engulfing him. That familiar sensation hit him squarely. Could it be? With a snap, Old Gua's only good leg also broke. Chapter 74, The Old Demon and the Scapegoat. The familiar darkness before his eyes, the familiar coarse sack over his head. This time, Old Gua intended to scream as usual, only to find his mouth stuffed as usual. With a slap, Old Gua's other leg was cleanly and neatly broken. He fell to the ground, rolling around. After purchasing wine from the tavern, Duan Yun just stepped out when he saw Shen Ying approaching. "Why are you out here?" Duan Yun asked. Depressed. Shen Ying said, "Don't mention it." The storyteller was only halfway through the tale when, before the second half could begin, someone broke his leg in the latrine. "No more story for us." Duan Yun feigned shock. A storyteller got his leg broken over a story? Yeah, who knows what deranged soul did it. Many suspect it was the work of a rival, Shen Ying explained. Then this storyteller probably won't be able to perform for a while, Duan Yun analyzed. Not really. When they carried him away, he told us he'd go heal his leg and continue feeding the masses tomorrow, Shen Ying replied. Duan Yun's cheeks twitched as he said, "Still going to tell stories?" Truly a case of indomitable spirit. After that, he and Shen Ying went to buy swords together. After visiting several shops in town, Duan Yun finally purchased a solidly made iron sword. Yes, solidly made was its only feature. It had nothing to do with being handsome or exquisite. No other reason but the price. Although the golden mask was made of gold, it was quite thin and had been smashed. Exchanging it netted just over 100 pieces of silver. With food and drink costing money, he had to continue choosing cost-effectiveness. Durability was all that mattered. With only so much silver on hand, there was no hope of getting a sword of the same caliber as Wenrou's. It must be said, quality is expensive, and expensive ensures quality. The handle of Wenrou's blade was so smooth to the touch, it could rival the delicate hands of a woman. Sometimes he even needed to feel it a little before sleeping at night. As for the other spoils of the day, like the red building women's anklet and such, he planned to study them first before deciding whether to sell them. On the way back, Shen Ying was still lamenting her bad luck at only hearing half the story. Unable to resist, Duan Yun asked, "Shen Ying, what do you think old demon Duan is like?" At the mention of this, Shen Ying was no longer sleepy and excitedly said, "He has to be the most hilarious demon I've heard about in the past decade. Changing men into women and violating them. Ha ha ha. Mainly because he shares your name." Every time the topic of old demon Duan sharing a name with Duan Yun came up, she couldn't help but laugh. Duan Yun sarcastically remarked, "Old demon Duan is such a pervert, and you're evaluating him like this. Aren't you afraid he might kill and violate you?" Shen Ying raised her eyebrows slightly and said, "Oh, right, but I only told you, and you don't seem like the type to betray friends." Speaking, she carefully observed Duan Yun. Duan Yun, puzzled, asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Shen Ying seriously said, "I'm trying to figure out if you are old demon Duan." Duan Yun, with a serious expression, said, "Why would you think that?" Shen Ying pondered. "The Morong brothers didn't suspect you, but that's because they're lazy and don't care to observe. Based on what I heard about old demon Duan today, you do share some similarities with him. It's said that old demon Duan is young and handsome. You also fit that category to some degree. Old demon Duan never hesitates when chopping anyone down. You were very fierce when chopping the eunuch. Plus, old demon Duan often rides a donkey, and you have a donkey too. Especially just now, you said old demon Duan might kill and violate me. After practicing with the devil training sword, perhaps you've already entertained those kinds of thoughts about me, not to the point of killing, but..." Listening to her analysis, Duan Yun at first found her to be logical and clear-headed. But her last point nearly made him jump. "Do all of you women think with such dirty minds?" "Dirty minds? I'm merely analyzing logically." Duan Yun snatched at Shen Ying's clothing and pulled her over, saying frustratedly, "Your analysis makes no sense. I've said it before, I'm a once-in-a-million cultivation prodigy, immune to any sword's curse. Furthermore, my ambition is to become a young hero. Even if you were a big-breasted fairy, I wouldn't kill or violate you, let alone cinch you." As he spoke, both of them looked down at Xin Ying's flat chest at the same time. Xin Ying quickly covered her chest and exclaimed, "You pervert!" The next instant, Duan Yun only felt a sudden flip of his vision, and his body was unexpectedly hoisted high into the air by Xin Ying. He immediately realized that this woman was a master boxer. When a woman gets frantic, she can be even more impulsive than men on their worst days. As he was about to be smashed to the ground, Duan Yun quickly sank his waist and wrapped his legs around Xin Ying's neck in a scissor move, yelling, "Stop!" In an instant, both of their movements ceased. One with legs scissored around the other's head, the other with body suspended, both frozen in place. Time itself seemed to have come to a standstill. Two passers-by went by and, seeing their intertwined and motionless struggle, one of them shouted, "Crazy! Run for it!" and took off like a shot. At this point, both of them calmed down. With Duan Yun's legs around Xin Ying, and Xin Ying holding Duan Yun, because Duan Yun was upside down, he could only peek at Xin Ying's pretty face by looking past his own crotch. The situation was somewhat awkward. "You relax your legs, and I'll let you down," said Xin Ying. When Duan Yun loosened his scissor hold, Xin Ying lifted her hand, and they separated. Then both instinctively straightened their disheveled clothes. To the uninformed, it might seem like they had just scrambled through a thicket. Afterwards, they no longer chatted amiably and simply walked back on their own, each acting offended. By now, they could see the dilapidated walls of Yuzhu Villa. That's when Duan Yun asked, "So am I old demon Duan or not?" Xin Ying glanced at him and replied, "Of course not. Why not? Old demon Duan impregnated Ling Xianzi of Wan Miao Palace in just 1 hour during the night a few days ago, while you were with me chopping down eunuchs," explained Xin Ying. Duan Yun's cheek twitched as he said, "Was that another story told by that storyteller?" "Yes, he tells tales, not tall tales." Duan Yun felt itchy teeth. He had gone too easy on him earlier. Unable to resist commenting, Duan Yun mocked, "Can old demon Duan be busy enough to commit so many bad deeds in one day? Of course, he can't be that busy. I think some of these are just scapegoats, deliberately pinned on old demon Duan," analyzed Xin Ying. "Really?" Duan Yun asked, curious. This was the first time he had heard something favorable about old demon Duan in a long while. For example, the incident at Gao Family Manor. The Thunder God and Mother Sect and people from the Red House have always been looking for old demon Duan around Wangchun City. Ling Xianzi was impregnated in the outskirts of Wangchun City, which shows that old demon Duan was in this area. But Gao Family Manor is thousands of miles away. Even if old demon Duan wanted to cause trouble, I'm afraid he couldn't reach that far, Xin Ying analyzed. "Then who's making old demon Duan take the blame?" asked Duan Yun. "I suspect it's the manor master of the Gao family manor himself," Xin Ying replied. "Ah? I've long heard that the manor master had some weird proclivities in that regard. Maybe he likes watching pigs mount his lovely wife, but as the master of a manor, such tastes really can't be paraded in public. After being discovered, he simply pinned the blame on old demon Duan." "That's possible?" Hearing this explanation, Duan Yun felt it was very perverted, yet somewhat logical. Damn, the manor master indulges in his vices, lets his wife be ridden by a pig, and the blame falls on me, turning himself into the victim, right? By now, they had arrived at the entrance of the villa, and as Duan Yun pushed the gate to enter, he asked, "What about the fairy from Chongling's sect becoming a prostitute?" At that moment, the voices of the Murong brothers sounded from inside. "I know the answer to this one." Chapter 75, The Favorite Hobby of the World's Most Beautiful Person. "I know this one." Murong was lying in the courtyard sunbathing, and probably because he had been there for a while, his pale face finally gained a bit of color. Hearing what Murong said, Xin Ying couldn't help but retort, "You were eavesdropping." Murong lazily said, What do you mean by eavesdropping? You guys were speaking so loudly and there was no other noise around here. It would have been hard not to hear. Shining asked, then tell me, what's the deal with the female sword immortal from the Chongling sect? Murong stretched his arms and said, if you ask me, the female sword immortal from the Chongling sect was also framed by old demon Duan. Hearing this, Duan Yun suddenly found Murong rather endearing. Anyone who says something beneficial about old demon Duan is adorable. Curious, Duan Yun couldn't help asking, so you're saying the female sword immortal willingly became a prostitute? Although he found this world quite mad, he still wasn't comfortable with the idea. I'm very familiar with the Chongling sect. It's a sword Dao sect from Yun State's Chonghua Mountain, and they're practically neighbors with my Murong family, always on friendly terms. When I was a kid, I often saw beautiful female sword cultivators from Chongling sect visiting our home. But when I was 10, my family suddenly cut off contact with the Chongling sect. I remember it followed a big fight between my mother and father, leaving my father's face scratched. Later, I sneaked a peek at my father's diary and realized it was because there was a problem with the heritage of the sect's core technique, the Jade Girl Heart Sutra. The Chongling sect only recruited female disciples, but this generation, after cultivating the Jade Girl Heart Sutra, not only couldn't they calm and focus their minds, their desires grew stronger day by day, and they couldn't suppress them. When I read my father's diary, he wrote, the Jade Girl Heart Sutra, due to its transmission, turned into the Desire Woman Heart Sutra. How can the Chongling sect cope? At that time, the sect leader of Chongling sect came to our house just to seduce my father, but my mother found out, and that led to the subsequent events. Later, I heard that the female sword cultivators from the Chongling sect, in order to continue their cultivation, had long been seducing men everywhere, specifically targeting reputable ones like my father, quite secretly. So, hearing that the female sword immortal suddenly became a prostitute, I'm not surprised at all because the more deeply you cultivate the Jade Girl Heart Sutra, the harder it is to control yourself. Becoming a prostitute is actually a good option. But the Chongling sect is ultimately a sword sect passed down through generations. They couldn't be blatant about such matters in the past, but now that old demon Duan has taken the blame, there are much fewer concerns. Let it spread. Saying that old demon Duan harmed them is not shameful. Hearing this, Duan Yun had many complaints he didn't know how to express, such as why did his father write a diary, and how it could be seen by others. But he still voiced the question he was most concerned about. For the sake of cultivating the technique, the female sword immortal went to the brothel to become a prostitute. Is this sword cultivation indispensable? Murong slowly said, Ah, Yun, you're still too young. Not everyone is a one-in-a-million cultivation prodigy like us. Chongling sect has hundreds of years of heritage, which means they have survived the stormy, bloody seas of the martial world for hundreds of years, making countless enemies. If due to their increased desires after cultivation, they stop practicing their sect's core technique, that would mean losing their foundation, and whether it's the whole sword sect or the disciples, they could be swallowed up by this terrifying martial world in an instant. Duan Yun, being a kind person, couldn't help but ponder. It seems the female sword immortal also had no choice but to do it for survival in this wicked martial world. She's pitiful too and only using old demon Duan as an excuse to maintain a bit of dignity. Seeing this, Murong spoke again. You see, you're overthinking again. Maybe the female sword immortal originally enjoyed doing this. That's why she cultivated the Desire Woman Heart Sutra so well. Female sword immortal enjoys doing this? What version of a woman sword immortal are you talking about? Duan Yun continued to poke fun. Murong, feeling a bit tired, said, Shening, I'm tired. You tell young hero Duan about our top beauty of the martial world. Lin Yusen. Shening said, You mean her? Then, Shening began to enlighten Duan Yun about this number one beauty of the martial world. Lin Yusen was the daughter of the Lin family, who was known for her floral beauty and intelligence from a young age. Sadly, the good times didn't last long. When she was 7, her parents were killed by enemies. Afterward, Lin Juishin was taken in by a nun, and when she grew up, she became the number one beauty, beautifully unmatched in the martial world. At that time, the family head of the martial arts family in Yun State, Nangong Nantian, fell in love with her at first sight, avenged the annihilation of her family, and even planned to divorce his wife to marry her officially. However, Lin Yusin refused, saying that divorcing his wife was unwise, and she had fallen in love with someone else. Nangong Nantian, a lovesick man, unable to win the heart of such a beauty, still painfully let her go, granting her freedom. He originally thought Lin Yusin would live a happy life with her beloved, but rumors about Lin Yusin often circulated in the martial world. Some rumors became more outrageous, claiming that even old beggars on the roads could sleep with this number one beauty of the martial world. Nangong Nantian initially thought these were slanders by the public against his beloved woman, considering the martial world is full of madmen who envy what they cannot have and seek to destroy it. But as he listened to these rumors, he could not let go of his concerns and one night set out to find Lin Yusin, wanting to see how the woman he had been thinking of for years was actually living. In the end, Nangong Nantian found her, but he himself almost went mad. He found Lin Yusin in a brothel, and the price was not high, one could even say it was cheap. When Lin Yusin was in a good mood, some unkempt old men just needed to pay a little silver to sleep with her. Nangong Nantian asked her why, and she said she had an addiction, liked to be slept with by men, initially liking those rich and powerful like him, but later got bored, liked good-looking ones for a while, and then even the good-looking ones became dull, so she started liking the ugly, the lowly. Why didn't you just make me?" Nangong Nantian asked with tears streaming down his face. "If only you had forced me a bit. Just a little force was needed. I like being forced," Lin Yusin responded. After hearing this story, Duan Yun was completely speechless. There really are people who enjoy this stuff, huh? Even the number one beauty in the martial world famed for her unmatched beauty. Duan Yun curiously asked, "So where is this number one beauty now?" Shun Ying disdainfully said, "Why do you ask with such anticipation? Do you want to go find her?" Duan Yun quickly responded earnestly, "I am a rookie in the martial world. Naturally, I need to be specific about gathering information about the martial world. She's long gone. Some say she died of a disease. Others say she took a ship to an island nation called Fusong. Lots of stories out there. If she's still alive, she would be an old lady now, but still beautiful. Go find her." Saying this, Shining, visibly upset, huffed and stormed off. Duan Yun, confused, asked, "Not cooking anymore? Cooking? Eat shit." Duan Yun. At this moment, the Murong brothers gloated. "Wow, to get so angry like that. Looks like you two siblings are deeper in than I thought. No dinner? Let's drink instead. Help me get the wine." Duan Yun picked up the newly arrived wine, cursing, "Drink wine? You lazy bum. Drink piss instead." Saying that, he took the wine and went to drink alone. The Murong brother looked innocent and said, "Why am I the one hurt when you two argue? Hey, save some for me." Saying this, he slithered on the ground like a snake. Chapter 76. Old Demon Duan. You will be my further nourishment. At night, Duan Yun, who was supposed to eat shit, still had a meal. Murong brothers, who were supposed to drink pee, still had a drink, all thanks to the return of Shining, who was angry, showing it was her own issue. She was angry not for any other reason, but simply because there are always those 2 days every month, and today just happened to coincide, compounded by only hearing half of the day's story, so she couldn't control her temper. To enjoy good food and drink, Duan Yun and Murong brothers didn't blame her. Instead, they comforted her, and Duan Yun even reminded her to drink more hot water. A woman who actively realizes her mistakes is harder to find than a five-legged toad. At night, Duan Yun lay on the bed, legs propped up, very relaxed. Unwittingly, he had stayed at Yuju Villa for a month or two already. He really liked it here. Even though the place was in ruins, looking like a scene from a horror movie, he still liked it here. How to put it, after acting for heaven today and returning here, he felt a sense of peace. Like a small boat drifting on a rainy night, finally returning to a familiar harbor. At the harbor, there were familiar people with him. He had made friends. Not just acquaintances who meet like drifting duckweed and scatter, but friends who are destined to live together in this big villa. For many people, this is very common since many people have family, friends, relatives, children, and even too many people can make it noisy and tiresome. But for Duan-yoon, who crossed over to find his parents not around and no one to accompany him, this was a beautiful experience. It must be said, the sister of Murong brothers and those few dead eunuchs were catalysts, making the trio's friendships gradually deepen. In the martial world, friendship often progresses further through such life-and-death camaraderie. Duan-yoon felt quite relaxed here, all because of these two friends from life-and-death experiences. However, women are always more troublesome. He almost got hit by Shining during the day because he mentioned her flat chest. Women tend to be foolish and petty, wanting to punch someone over speaking the truth. But these are just small conflicts between men and women, very normal. He isn't like the Murong brothers. Every woman they meet after practicing their sword wants to chop him. At least Shining would definitely not chop him. Thinking back on today's acting for heaven, Duan-yoon still felt nervous, excited, and blood boiling, adrenaline surging. It's really satisfying to kill villains every time. What he needs to do next is to continue enjoying this thrill. He summarized that during this period, as a 1 in 10,000 cultivation prodigy, his cultivation efficiency wasn't high. In 2 months, he had only mastered the 7th layer of Spring Rain and Death Energy breaking Body Sword Energy, so he needed to keep pushing. So Duan-yoon couldn't sleep. He got up and lit the oil lamp. At night, the villa in front of the graveyard shone like a bean, illuminating Duan-yoon's handsome face. He took out the human skin he had peeled from that madman of thunder and began to transcribe. Because there was no table in the room, Duan-yoon could only sit cross-legged to write. So there he sat, holding a pen in one hand and a piece of human skin in the other, comparing them as he wrote. This scene, if seen by the Murong brothers and Shining, would definitely make them suspect that he was some old demon. Which right-minded young hero would take out a freshly peeled human skin in the dead of night to study a cultivation technique? After being set aside for so long, the skin had dried somewhat, but the touch of it still sent chills down Duan-yoon's spine and filled him with fear. This was human skin after all. What kind of twisted mind would inscribe cultivation techniques on their own skin? People from the Thunder God and Mother sect were truly all mad. As Duan-yoon copied, he couldn't help but complain. Thinking about how he could fight toe-to-toe with such madmen, Duan-yoon actually felt a sense of pleasure from his progress. Back in Lishui City, he could only match wits with the children of the Xuanxiong gang and was even forced to leave for 2 whole months. It must be said, the tadpole-like script on the human skin was very mysterious. Each character seemed similar, yet upon closer inspection, they all differed, as if each tadpole was searching for a different mother. As he copied, he even felt a drowsy sensation coming over him. Duan-yoon steeled himself and copied down the tadpole script from the human skin, but as sleepiness overwhelmed him, his initial rigor fell away, and he merely sketched a rough imitation without worrying too much about accuracy. After finishing, Duan-yoon realized that he finally didn't need to carry this piece of human skin anymore. So he went to the backyard and buried it under the old tree that had been pierced by sword chi several times, then returned to his room to sleep. He slept very deeply, but he kept dreaming of tadpoles searching for their mothers. All kinds of tadpoles, red, white, black, blue, yellow, each seeking a different mother. While Duan-yoon dreamed of tadpoles, Elder Hong-ing of the Red House was also busily searching for tadpoles. The pain of losing her daughter during the day caused her eyes to stay devoid of whites, showing only black. Under her, the 5th man had rolled his eyes back, his body rapidly shriveling up as if deflated. The man struggled to escape, but he was as if magnetically stuck to her. 5 men, stacked together under Elder Hong-ing, like stacked corpses, created a both erotic and horrifying sight. Nearby, another fairy of the Red House, though envious, dared not make a move, because she knew the elder was furious, and at times like this the elder was not human. At this time, the half-white, half-black-haired Elder Hong-ing of the Red House, while busy, asked, "Has old demon Duan not been found yet?" The woman from the Red House replied tremblingly, "Elder, we are still searching. Hong Ying took a deep breath and said, "Just keep an eye on the people from Thunder God and Mother Sect. They have better means to find someone." Every time she committed adultery, Hong Ying felt her celestial essence uplifting as if about to ascend, and her mind would become very clear. This is why she enjoyed and preferred to engage in extensive and outrageous acts. At this moment, the people from the Thunder God and Mother Sect indeed made some progress. In the guest room of Sky Room, for disciples from the Thunder God and Mother Sect knelt on the ground, the iron flute buzzing above their heads. The fourth elder, Jean Ladu, covered in tadpole script, watched them and darkly said, "Incompetence? You've still not found him?" Saying this, he pointed the sharp tip of the iron flute at one of the disciples. This was a sign of impending murder. The disciple, sensing the lethal intent, suddenly had a flash of insight and said, "Elder, the graveyard has been interfering with us. We've been avoiding that area out of fear of its influence, not searching there." Jean Ladu slightly lifted his iron flute and said, "Then what are you waiting for?" Thunder rumbled through the sky. Peacock, with Jean Ladu and Hua Wu chained up, watched the madman from the Thunder God and Mother Sect exit the inn, a charming smile on his face. "Old Demon Duan, oh old Demon Duan, you will be the nourishment for my next step up." Yes, after seeing old Demon Duan's work during the day, his own stagnant cultivation had unexpectedly loosened a bit. Chapter 77. Is old Demon Duan here to crack jokes? This night, Duan Yun slept very deeply and for a long time. He dreamt of little tadpoles searching for their mother all night and never finding her. When he woke up, it was already past his usual breakfast time. The Murong brothers were still nestled in the straw mat. He usually slept until the afternoon and skipped breakfast and lunch. Shining, however, was nowhere to be seen. After asking around, Duan Yun learned that the fellow had run off to small Springtown to listen to a storyteller early in the morning. Was this an addiction to storytelling? Duan Yun scooped himself a bowl of the cold thin porridge left by Shining and picked a piece of red fermented tofu from the small jar. The red fermented tofu, bought from the town's charcuterie, was coated with a layer of bright red chili powder, while the tofu inside was a yellowish white. You wouldn't necessarily say it's delicious, but its advantage is its lasting flavor. A small piece can easily accompany a whole bowl of thin porridge. Paired with the cold thin porridge, it indeed had its own unique taste. Yesterday this young hero Murong stirred quite a scene outside. I wonder what the situation is like today. I'll check it out this afternoon. When it comes to pursuing a career, one cannot slack off. Even if I chopped down a lot yesterday, that doesn't mean I'll stop today. It's all about consistent output. In my past life, even with a relaxed Monday to Friday job, I had to work 5 days before resting for 2. Although the career of a young hero like me comes in bursts, once started, it should at least match the intensity of working 5 days with 2 days off. At this moment, Duan Yun suddenly developed a concern. If I killed all the red building women and the nuts from the Thunder God and Mother Sect here, how would I maintain the intensity of my career? I suppose there's only one option. Go out and kill. There are plenty of evil demons and heretics all over the world. I old demon Duan Pa, I young hero Duan, aim to act for heaven, to cleanse them off the face of the earth. At noon, Shin Ying returned. As soon as she arrived, she wouldn't stop talking about a murder that occurred in the city yesterday. The topic was explosive enough to get the Murong brothers, who usually only move a bit in the afternoon, up to gossip. Because this murder was orchestrated by old Demon Duan. The Murong brothers couldn't help but sigh. Old Demon Duan really has a presence in the Wangchun city area. Does this mean there is hope for me to turn into a woman? Duan Yun, too weak to retort, said, "If you became a woman, your sisters might kill you even more ruthlessly." Bullshit. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. At this moment, Shanning added, "With old Demon Duan's temperament, once you're turned into a woman, are you sure you could keep your virtue intact?" The Murong brothers hesitated for a moment and said, "As long as I could become a woman and break the curse, even if I was." Saying so, he glanced down at his body. At this glance, both Shining and Duan Yun felt a shiver and were left speechless. Does this guy have some strange fetish or what? As one of the up-and-coming demons of recent years, old demon Duan's reputation was undoubtedly the most notorious. The other new demons tend to need time to get ready, to adapt to the environment, perhaps starting with a few incidents here and there before gradually establishing their ominous names. But old demon Duan was different. His notoriety struck like thunder, an explosive debut very topical. Just the very act of emasculating men into women, starting with the well-known Lingshui twin heroes, put him far beyond the reach of other new demons. The other demons were nothing more than routine murders, only stirring up some ripples in the landscape of the martial world without much novelty. But not so for the old demon Duan. He innovates. The mere act of stripping men of their manhood before killing them was a breath of fresh air for many, satisfying the hunger of the masses. Then came the killings of the Red Building women, people from the Thunder God and Mother sect, and the demon monks of the Dusk Temple, raising his notoriety to the next level. The people he killed were all notoriously problematic and hard targets in the martial world, the kind of figures new demons wouldn't dare to touch lightly, let alone form underworld alliances with. But old demon Duan was different. He had no ties that bound him, and he would kill upon capture, not limiting his targets to one sect or another, but expanding threats on multiple fronts. Afterward, with Red Building women and the nuts from the Thunder God and Mother sect gathering in Wangchun City, and rumors of the Dusk Temple's demon monks making an appearance, it was thought that old demon Duan would definitely back down this time. After all, the other side was numerous and strong, not to be trifled with, and since causing trouble in the martial world, old demon Duan had always been on his own. Who would have thought? A thunderclap out of a clear sky, and under such circumstances, old demon Duan actually made his move. With one strike, 10 innocent lives vanished into thin air, becoming pitiful wronged souls. That poor little fairy from the Red House, just a bit older than a child, hadn't even experienced the perils of the martial world, and ended up chopped by old demon Duan to nothing more than half a body. She was covered with over 20 bleeding holes, with blood tears running down her face, fresh blood oozing from her body, crawling through the city as the flagstones were stained a thorough red. Upon seeing her mother, she only said, "Mother, I'm scared." Before she passed away, a truly tragical and lamentable death. The cruelty of old demon Duan's methods, the perversity of his temperament, can only be described as horrific to this extent. In the courtyard, Shuning imitated the storyteller's phrases, vividly recounting the details she had just heard. Duan Yun cursed under his breath, "Son of a bitch," and asked, "Was that from the legless storyteller who spoke yesterday?" "Yes, this morning he was carried here bright and early. Even with both legs broken, he was still very animated in his storytelling." Shining, speaking and then seemingly suddenly recalling something extremely amusing, couldn't help but burst into loud laughter. She laughed while slapping her thigh as if she had gone mad. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers exchanged puzzled looks. And the funniest part, after old demon Duan committed the murders, he actually left behind a row of blood-written words, claiming he was a young hero named Murong Fu, acting for heaven. Ha 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 ha. Initially, the Murong brothers, who were as puzzled as Duan Yun as to why Shining was suddenly laughing, also burst into loud laughter upon hearing this sentence. Ha 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 ha. Old demon Duan, playing the hero, ha ha ha. Putting these two things together is ridiculous enough, but he even put on a disguise. It's as if old demon Duan intended to be comedic, wearing a disguise like that. Whether it's a human or ghost, everyone knows it's him. At this point, Shining and the Murong brothers laughed until they had tears in their eyes. Duan Yun's cheeks twitched as he thought, "Am I really that funny?" He completely didn't understand what was so funny, but seeing them laughing like that, he would seem out of place if he didn't laugh. So he also laughed, but his laughter was quite dry and not at all smooth. When the storyteller mentioned this earlier, the whole tea house went insane with laughter. Ha 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 ha. Usually quiet as a haunted house, Yuju Villa was momentarily filled with waves of devilishly infectious laughter. Duan Yun gritted his teeth and said, "If he's that funny, he must have received quite a reward, right?" Shining replied, "Of course, I saw it must be at least double from yesterday." I even gave him a silver coin. Duan Yun took a deep breath and said, "Isn't he afraid of his peers breaking his third leg?" Shining replied, "Probably not anymore. Because of the incident with old demon Duan yesterday, all the storytellers around are desperately vying to tell stories, and every storyteller from the Diyu Society is even wrapping a red silk band around their head." Duan Yun asked, "What does that mean?" To wrap a red silk band signifies their bloodthirsty storytelling and a resolve to face death, meaning no matter how the competition is, they are determined to carry on with the storytelling regardless of being molested, murdered, or fallen. The storytelling business of the Diyu Society is the best, naturally for a reason, Shining explained. Hearing this, Duan Yun felt that just like there are many madmen in the martial arts world, so are there among the storytellers. At that moment, Shining continued, "Oh right, the storyteller also made a special mention of the goddess catcher." The Murong brothers exclaimed in surprise, "What? Even the goddess catcher from Qingqi Bureau has been alerted." Duan Yun finally heard about an area he was somewhat familiar with and said, "How? Is the goddess catcher from Qingqi Bureau really that impressive?" Shining shook her head. "Of course not. When the storyteller mentioned the goddess catcher, it was out of concern for their safety. After all, many demons have a fetish for capturing and humiliating goddess catchers. If they have no support this time, they might end up being caught by old demon Duan and tortured in a dark cellar, left disfigured. I didn't have much interest in the rest of the speculation about shedding blood tears, bearing devil's spawn, and so on, so I came back early." Duan Yun. "Oh right. The goddess catchers who came this time seem to be a pair of twin sisters," Shining added. Duan Yun. Chapter 78 Absorption Star Skills. The first time Duan Yun visited small spring town, he heard the stories about himself, old demon Duan. It was his first time being the protagonist in a storyteller's tale. A hero turned fallen, breaking up lovers, wantonly slaughtering the innocent. Damn it, almost 2 months had passed, and he was still the protagonist. This time, this protagonist even got mixed up with people he once knew. The goddess catcher who came this time was a pair of twins, both with great figures and ample busts. If Yun State's Qingqi Bureau wasn't known for producing twin goddess catchers, then most likely, they were acquaintances he had met before. He still vividly remembered the lower body of the younger goddess catcher sister, so until now, he didn't know her name. Hearing that the goddess catcher sisters had also arrived, Duan Yun suddenly harbored some hope of clearing his name. Yes, to prove he was a righteous young hero and not some demon wreaking havoc in the martial world. Besides clarifying himself, having someone from the court to help clear his name would obviously be best. The Qingqi Bureau was an agency of the court. Though the court wasn't performing well, it still existed, and their words should carry some weight. If the goddess catcher sisters could speak for him and prove his innocence, then that'd really be something. Then, when he stepped out, Duan Yun, young hero Duan, would be known for his heroism, not his demonic reputation. He had to find a suitable opportunity to meet these sisters. But thinking of the younger goddess catcher sisters' lower body, Duan Yun hesitated for a moment. What if they didn't listen to him? For a time, his old plans resurfaced in his mind. Nothing fancy, just keep them locked in the cellar and inspire their emotions and reason with them over there. The old storytellers who fabricated yellow rumors about him. He used to wish to break their legs, but this time he felt a bit guilty. Because he really did contemplate locking those goddess catcher sisters up in the cellar. He even contemplated restarting the plan now. For his career as a young hero, for his reputation, it's indeed worth a try. If it fails, he won't lose anything. Today, Shining was in a good mood. The way she stir-fried the meat at noon, the aroma was bursting. She said she needed to hurry and finish eating because she wanted to go out in the afternoon to see if there was anything interesting. But barely had she eaten half her meal when Shining suddenly looked at the distant sky and said, "Is that a paper kite?" "No, it's a person." Hearing there was someone floating in the sky, Murong ventured out to join in the excitement. He lay on the ground and couldn't help but remark, "Not just any person, but a beautiful woman flying so high. Isn't she afraid of catching a cold?" No, whoever can fly so high and dress so scantily must definitely be a fairy from Red House. What are they doing here? Morong squinted his eyes and observed as he spoke. Definitely has something to do with old demon Duan. I need to go have a look. Shun Ying abandoned her half-finished meal, saying she wanted to watch the excitement. Duan Yun watched her hurried departure and figured out that this madam also had the genes of a bloodthirsty spectator. Fairies continued to appear around the Yushu town area, floating like human-shaped paper kites. Yushu Villa was relatively higher, hence one could see this quite magical and sinister scene. Duan Yun had seen this scene last night. This group of ladies floating in the air, eyeing this handsome young hero, it was quite frightening. Alas, only by killing them all could he feel less afraid. Morong saw him continuously watching outside and couldn't help but say, "It's somewhat chaotic outside. If you're worried about your sister, go have a look." Duan Yun refused. "I'm not going." "Why?" "I'm afraid of being assaulted." Morong looked at his handsome face and felt it made a lot of sense. Duan Yun didn't follow. He wasn't one to join in the excitement. Mainly because, since they had even found Yushu town, he needed to seize the time to rest and wait for a good opportunity. To kill them all. Duan Yun took out the tadpole script he had transcribed last night and started studying it carefully. Also brought out was the old Mother Divine Iron he had obtained from a lunatic from the Thunder God and Mother sect. It was covered in various patterns of tadpole script, which to Duan Yun seemed like reading an alien script. The divine iron falling from the sky, understanding the cultivation technique amidst thunder sounds, made him feel like dealing with aliens. Duan Yun complained. Even though he was an extraordinary cultivation genius, facing these runes, he temporarily didn't know how to start. But Duan Yun was not discouraged, continuing to look, because he had personally seen that thunder madman turning electric light into clubs, contending with his sword light. If even that kind of lousy figure could train efficiently, there's no reason this 1 in 10,000 cultivation genius couldn't, right? Is it necessary to get an antenna on my head first? Duan Yun took out the 2 iron flutes he had pulled from the head of the thunder madman and pondered. Frankly, every time he saw these iron flutes, he thought of Teletubbies. Did the madman of Thunder God and Mother sect manage to cultivate because he inserted these 2 antennas? Should he drill 2 holes and insert them? Duan Yun quickly dismissed the idea, even feeling a chill down his spine. How could I have such a thought? Have you ever seen a young hero with 2 antennas on his head? The sky was gloomily overcast, and spider webs under the eaves of the room swayed with the wind like white fuzz, creating a somewhat strange and even eerie atmosphere. Indeed, he really had the idea of inserting the iron flute on his head just now. For a moment, in the dim room, whether it was the thin divine iron or the thick and long iron flute, both seemed to exude an evil aura. Duan Yun couldn't help but recall what Hua Wen had said when he first tried to pull the Thunder Madman's iron flute. The Thunder God and Mother sect is mysterious and unpredictable. Possessing these items might bring disaster. But Duan Yun quickly cheered up. His current self was no longer the same as before, able to handle even the perilous 12 layers of spring rain, let alone a mere Thunder God and Mother sect's thunder listening cultivation technique. He wouldn't just look a little. He knew, with his unparalleled talent and extraordinary wisdom, there was nothing he could not comprehend. As he observed, Duan Yun found himself becoming drowsy again. His body leaned, and he dozed off, the tadpole script he was copying falling to the ground. Duan Yun fell asleep, but those sleep-inducing tadpole scripts entered his sea of consciousness, sinking into his dreams. This time, these tadpoles were still looking for their mother. They changed colors, continuously burrowing deeper, and this time, Duan Yun in his sleep soon realized he was dreaming. A similar dream to last night. Sometimes, when people have nightmares, they suddenly realize they're dreaming and try to wake up. Duan Yun was in such a state now, but he didn't wish to wake up. Even in his dream, he hadn't forgotten that he was a once-in-a-million cultivation prodigy, so it was only appropriate. Like Chao Mengda was adept at killing in dreams, Duan Yun was adept at comprehending divine skills in dreams. Thus, in his dream, Duan Yun let his consciousness wander, feeling his soul floating upwards to observe the dream from an overlooking perspective. From above, Duan Yun could see various little tadpoles wagging their tails, swimming downwards, as if their mother was even lower below. Lower below? Suddenly, Duan Yun felt a pulling force from the imagery below, like a whirlpool. This feeling was very similar to when he saw the tadpole script inscribed on the Thunder Madman's body, only stronger. At that moment, Duan Yun suddenly saw the mother that the little tadpoles were looking for. A palm followed by an arm and then a face. His handsome face, at the bottom of this whirlpool, it almost resembled a mirror, reflecting his appearance. Is this a hand technique? And these tadpoles? True Qi? Is the true Qi outside his palm being absorbed inward? After observing closely for a while, Duan Yun realized that the area these tadpoles were moving around resembled a sphere. A sphere, why does it look so much like a human head? Absorbing the true Qi inside the human head? Suddenly, Duan Yun understood. Absorption star skills? Duan Yun suddenly woke up, and then immediately had an epiphany. He had comprehended a hand technique in his dream. His one-in-a-million cultivation prodigy nature had indeed allowed him to have an enlightenment in his dream. But this hand technique seemed to have little to do with thunder and lightning. Having comprehended the absorption star skills from the runes on the Thunder Madman of Thunder God and Mother Sect, was this a misunderstanding? No. How could I possibly misunderstand? Thunder God and Mother Sect obtained their cultivation techniques through listening to thunder. If there really were immortals in the sky, then the techniques would be varied and not limited to just thunder. The Thunder Madman was adept at sudden realizations related to thunder because they listened to thunder too much, limiting their perspective, but not for him, who is a one-in-a-million cultivation prodigy. This hand technique, what renowned orthodox martial arts does this absorption star skill belong to? With a flash of his extraordinary wisdom, Duan Yun said, "What absorption star skills? This is clearly Biming divine skill." He looked at his palm and pondered, "What kind of absorption is this? I need to find someone to verify it." Chapter 79. Demon Slaying Feast. Duan Yun looked at his palm, operating his true Qi in accordance with the method he had realized in his dream. His palm seemed to harbor an almost imperceptible inward-sucking wind, very faint, at most capable of slightly moving a spider web. Obviously, this was a cultivation technique that could cause others' true Qi to gather towards his own palm. In Duan Yun's mind, the closest equivalent was probably the Biming divine skill. But to truly grasp its effects, he still needed to test it on someone. The first person Duan Yun thought of was Murong, the person who was closest to him. But he was worried that using it on Murong might cause issues. By this time, it was almost dark. Whether because he had just comprehended a cultivation technique or was simply tired, he had slept for quite a long time. Looking at the tadpole script he had copied and dropped on the floor, Duan Yun couldn't help but comment, "How is this stuff more sleep-inducing than a language class?" As usual, Yuzhu Villa remained eerily silent. Duan Yun walked out of his room, circled around, and found that Shining hadn't returned yet, and Murong was still playing dead. Where had this bloodthirsty audience, Shining, gone to enjoy the excitement? Since he had a hand technique to try out, he decided to join the crowd as well. Perhaps he could find some decent subjects to test. Besides, could it even be called excitement without me, Mr. Duan Pa, without young hero Duan? Thus, he walked out the door with his swords. As he exited, Little Gray approached him. Duan Yun understood what it meant. It wanted Duan Yun to ride it to go shopping. This gray donkey hadn't been ridden for a while, spending its days grazing and resting, probably fearing it would be deemed useless and eaten, so it took the initiative to find work. Duan Yun reassured it, "The situation is tense lately. You are a dangerous species now too. Let's wait until things calm down." Yes, without eliminating the troublemakers, even riding a donkey wouldn't be peaceful. Unconsciously, Duan Yun touched the hilt of his sword and felt when Ro seemed as if it understood him, getting excited. Murong had called it a demon blade, which was sheer libel. This was clearly a blade of justice. Look, it got anxious without a day of punishing the wicked and eradicating evil. Once out of the main gate of Yuzhu Villa, The road sloped downhill. After walking through a densely wooded path, Duan Yun paused. Yuzhu Villa was not far from Yusher town. From this spot with a clearer view he could see half of the town. Normally at this hour, there would only be a few oil lamps lit in the town. But even though it wasn't completely dark yet, the whole town was brightly lit. Duan Yun had never spent New Year's in Yusher town, but he guessed that even during the New Year's celebrations, it wouldn't be this lively. He knew from his previous shopping trips in the town that compared to places like Small Springtown, Yusher town was the poorest. The number of households that used oil lamps at night was very few. With so many lamps lit this time, how many outsiders had come? The closer he got to the town, the more certain Duan Yun was that there were many outsiders in Yusher town. At this hour, there were still Jianghu people carrying weapons rushing over from all directions. Duan Yun mingled into the crowd. This demon-slaying conference is a big event that happens only once every 10 years. Yes, how can we not join such an event? That would be a waste of our lives in the martial world. Do you think we'll see old Demon Duan, the legendary figure? How could we not? With so many people coming, aren't they all here to see old Demon Duan get mobbed? People from Thunder God and Mother Sect and Red House have made such a big preparation. They must be confident in finding old Demon Duan. People from Thunder God and Mother Sect have very sharp ears. They've somehow gotten wind that old Demon Duan is around this area. They are just using other means to pinpoint his exact location. Once it's confirmed, it will be the time when old Demon Duan gets mobbed. When that time comes, with so many heroes gathered together, even if old Demon Duan had the ability to reach the heavens, he wouldn't be able to turn things around. Xiong, you're mighty. Are you really going to take action when the time comes? Just kidding. I'm just here to watch the fun. Exactly, just here to watch. What's there to risk our lives for? Even if we can't find old Demon Duan, with so many warriors from the martial world gathered, doing some business would be good too. True, such a spectacle should definitely not be missed. However, we should stick close together. Those women of the red building are quite desperate. At this moment, there are still a few red building women floating in the sky. Some of the Jianghu people who considered themselves handsome had already worn hats or masks, afraid of being targeted by the red building women. Don't miss the excitement and end up being seduced by a red building fairy. Duan Yun finally understood that these people were here to watch the show, attending what was called the Demon Slaying Conference. Damn! A demon slaying conference? Are they slaughtering me? Duan Yun had never expected to be treated like this. In martial arts novels, a demon-slaying conference was usually a major event, and now he suddenly found himself the protagonist of such an event. According to the character setting, he should have been the hero slaying the demon, famed across the world after a single slaughter, but now he had become the one to be slain. This world is truly mad. Following the crowd into the town, Duan Yun discovered that Yusher town was so lively he almost didn't recognize it. The streets, which were usually almost deserted in the afternoon, were now crowded everywhere. The dilapidated roadsides even saw the emergence of numerous street vendors, selling snacks, noodles, fabrics, and even weapons. There were also storytellers narrating stories in the distance. This was several times livelier than Small Spring City. No wonder Shining hasn't come back for half a day. Perhaps due to the deterrent power of the red building fairies. The best-selling here turned out to be those selling masks and hats. Duan Yun also bought a hat to wear on his head, carrying a sword on his back, truly feeling like a swordsman. The shops in Yusher town, which were usually closed early, were mostly open now. Old Chen's roast meat shop was doing the best business. Old Chen was sweating profusely. Since the people from Mo sect were also here, these usually unruly martial artists were relatively behaved, at most slamming the table and complaining a few times, not fighting or killing, and they even paid in silver. While waiting for the marinade to flavor up, Old Chun even had an illusion. That was going back to his childhood when the jade mine was being actively mined, and Yusher town was just as populous. Many times he felt it was all an illusion. Due to the rapid decline of Yusher town, it quieted down swiftly. On the road, Duan Yun already saw quite a few Jianghu people sleeping by the roadside. With so many people tonight, If they don't secure a spot early, they won't even have a place on the roadside to lie down. Duan Yun even saw an old acquaintance, a storyteller wrapped with a red silk band and his legs bandaged with white cloth and sticks, Old Gua. Next to him were two other storytellers also wrapped in red silk bands, likely from the Dayu society. Duan Yun couldn't help but move closer to fiercely complain. Your legs are broken, yet you still rush to join in the excitement. Seeing this, Old Guo replied, this demon-slaying conference is the easiest place to witness the prowess of old demon Duan. We, the storytellers, if we don't watch it personally, how can we narrate the story beautifully? Hearing his words, Duan Yun was somewhat touched. This fellow's dedication to his career was as intense as his own. He too needed to hurry up and find someone to test his skills. At this moment, Duan Yun's attention was suddenly caught by a carriage. A pitch-black carriage, where a very beautiful woman in a green dress sat at the rear. Chapter 80. My divine skill is indeed practiced correctly. Duan Yun noticed the woman in the green dress on the carriage. Since entering the martial world, he could barely claim he had seen all sorts of beauties, such as the goddess catcher sisters and Shining. Yet upon seeing this woman, he still felt somewhat captivated. However, Duan Yun quickly lost interest in her. It was because he recognized that this green-dressed woman was attracted to the same sex. Her gaze was focused on women. She showed no concern for handsome men like himself. Yes, although he wore a broad-brimmed hat, his figure and demeanor were still handsome. The only explanation was that the woman was interested in the same sex. She had no interest in him, and he had no interest in her. Behind that green-dressed woman, inside the pitch-black carriage, Hua Wen and Hua Wu were curled up like pitiful little puppies. They were being confined by Peacock because Hua Wu had taken another naked sprint and hence brushed past old demon Duan. Duan Yun continued walking forward and realized that Xin Ying was indeed listening to storytelling. The storytelling stall was clearly set up temporarily, yet the seating was divided into different classes. The seat Xin Ying occupied was clearly the more expensive one, and there was tea and melon seed pastries on the small table beside her. After they had killed the eunuch, they had shared some of the spoils. Because the Murong brothers performed the worst and basically didn't need money, Duan Yun was keeping their share for them, while Xin Ying had received a quarter. Her reason was that she wanted to shop and dine. It seemed most of her silver was spent on listening to the storyteller. It was a mystery what kind of magic old demon Duan's story held, as she had been listening for days without growing tired of it. Above, a fat storyteller, also with a red ribbon wrapped around his head, was doing his storytelling. Old demon Duan's gender remains a mystery now, as he can make others switch genders, so naturally he can be either male or female. His identity is even more enigmatic, suddenly appearing from nowhere with no knowledge of his cultivation technique heritage, yet every path he takes is immensely evil. Through this old man's summary, as well as the accounts of one of the few survivors, one-eyed green dragon monk, old demon Duan has a penchant for playing the role of a young hero, righteously overcoming evil. When facing old demon Duan, one of the few survival strategies is to obey him, to recognize him as a young hero acting heroically. The storyteller on stage was presenting a survival guide in the event of encountering old demon Duan. Old demon Duan himself was not paying attention to the story. He was looking for someone to test his skills on. This town was crowded with heroes from the martial world, and was a major base for both the Thunder God and Mother Sect and Red House. Thus acting out here was likely to expose him and result in a beating. He needed to look outside to see if there were any fish that had slipped through the net. Duan Yun wandered around the town, then left and roamed the outskirts. Different from the bustling town, the outside was deathly quiet, as if they were two completely different worlds. The distant water of the lake flickered with ripples, losing its daytime elegance in the dark surroundings, and appeared profound and terrifying instead. Duan Yun felt a bit hungry and, considering that so many in the town were after his life, decided to head back to figure out his meal. And as he walked down the path, he truly found a suitable target. A man clad in red clothes, a madman of the Thunder God and Mother Sect, was walking over from the other side of the mountain. This man in red, one of those dispatched to find Duan Yun's whereabouts. Due to the influence of the graveyard, they could only roughly locate old demon Duan position, and finding him directly would mean paying a certain price, so they opted for the more foolish method first. However, after searching for a long time, this disciple of the Thunder God and Mother sect found nothing. He was in a foul mood, so upon seeing Duan Yun, he wanted to vent his anger. This was outside of the town, with no one to restrain them. Wasn't it just perfect? But in the next moment, the man's muscles tensed up. For the life flute on his head unexpectedly began to vibrate slightly and grew hot. This indicated that old demon Duan was nearby. Yet, the only person here was this young man who happened to be walking towards him. The Thunder Sect madman's courage drained away, and he could only pretend not to see him and walk in the direction of the town. There was only this one path here, and it was not wide. The Thunder Sect madman was extremely afraid, but had no choice but to compose himself and continue walking. At this moment, he could not show any sign of oddity, or else he might very well draw the attention of old demon Duan. The man wearing the bamboo hat, judging from his hands and feet, truly seemed young, fitting the characteristics of old demon Duan. They passed by each other without incident. Lei Frenzy continued to maintain his composure, walking forward. Now there was no sound behind him. Ahead, the warm glow of the town was just in front. It's all right, it must be all right. Just when Lei Frenzy was about to breathe a sigh of relief, at that moment, a ghostly voice sounded. "Do you sense me?" This voice made half of Lei Frenzy's soul nearly fly away in fright. His head stiffly turned, and then he saw Duan Yun's handsome face. "Old demon Duan," Lei Frenzy blurted out. Hearing these 3 words, Duan Yun's expression darkened a lot and said, "Evil fiend, taste my beaming divine skill." In the next instant, his palm was already pressed on Lei Frenzy's sparsely haired head. The hand technique he comprehended in the dream brought forth a strange suction force, and the true chi in Lei Frenzy's mind surged towards his palm like tadpoles. Lei Frenzy, already scared half to death, felt even more dazed after this powerful suction. His head mushy, his eyes dull, even forgetting to counterattack or beg for life. For a moment, where Duan Yun's palm touched Lei Frenzy's head, the air became distorted, making Duan Yun's face seem twisted from afar. After Lei Frenzy's true chi was absorbed into his palm, Duan Yun was surprised to find that it contained the power of thunder and lightning. The thunder and true chi were nearly fused, able to flow through the meridians into the dantian for storage. That explained it. He had previously suspected that he might have practiced the wrong technique. After all, the cultivation technique understood from the runes on Lei Frenzy's body should have some relation to thunder. Now it seemed he had not practiced wrongly at all. He himself did not produce thunder and lightning, but he could possess the power of thunder and lightning simply by transferring it from these people. He did not know if the true chi of the Thunder God and Mother sect individuals inherently contained thunder and lightning, or whether the beaming divine skill would automatically generate the power of thunder and lightning during the absorption process of true chi. In any case, as the true chi carrying electric current entered his body, Duan Yun felt exhilarated. Truly thrilling. At this time, Duan Yun suddenly turned his head and spotted 2 passers-by with fishing rods not far away. These 2, although appearing to be ordinary fishermen, seemed off as they had weapons with them. Having been noticed by Duan Yun, the 2 fishermen were greatly alarmed and wanted to retreat. "Stop! I, young hero Duan Lang, have lived a life of kindness, upholding justice. Why do you flee? Could it be that you too are villains with guilty consciences?" While still single-handedly holding onto Lei Frenzy's skull and continuing the absorption, Duan Yun asked. Seeing his youthful and handsome appearance, and hearing him claim to be a young hero, they thought to themselves, "This is bad, he might be old demon Duan." The fisherman on the left reacted swiftly, saying, "Young hero Duan, we are merely passing through and saw you executing this crazed man who has done nothing but evil. We did not want to disturb you and decided to leave." The fisherman on the right caught on and said, "Young hero Duan, please don't misunderstand. We too are men of valor. We often help the orphans and widows next door." Duan Yun's face softened, and he said, Well, since we are all in the same path, go on with your business. The two fishermen quickly walked away. On their way, one of them lowered his voice and said, Lee, are we still going fishing? We just encountered Mr. Duan himself, nearly losing our lives. Fish. Even if it costs us our lives, we shall fish. Would you, a fisherman, return empty-handed? You wouldn't want to be laughed at by your wife. The fisherman felt the reasoning was sound, and so the two headed toward the lakeside. At this moment, Lei Frenzy, who was being absorbed by Duan Yun, suddenly had a bright glint in his dull eyes. Duan Yun's eyes also brightened, because in that instant, their thoughts synchronized, and Lei Frenzy felt Duan Yun's overwhelming heroic spirit. I want to be a hero, Lei Frenzy exclaimed with shining eyes.